Hello again. In the last video, you learned about value-driven delivery, which is when the team is focused on delivering a product that has maximum value for its customers. One way to help teams make sure they're staying focused is by following a value roadmap. In this video, I'll explain what a value roadmap is and what you need to create one. As a project manager, part of your job is to help teams stay focused on delivering value. A great way to do this is to build a value roadmap. It's an agile way of mapping out the timelines and requirements for the product development process and can be used in all types of businesses. This roadmap is a guide that demonstrates where to go, how to get there, and what to accomplish along the way in order to maximize value. It helps map out a product idea and the strategy for how to deliver it. As the team follows their roadmap, they gather input from customers and stakeholders and apply their findings to each iteration of the product. Creating a roadmap helps the team explain the vision of the product and can also be used to identify important milestones. A typical value roadmap has 3 components: a product vision, a product roadmap, and release plans. The first component of a value roadmap is the product vision. Your product vision is a critical step to starting any new Scrum project. Your vision is based on your user interviews and market analysis and becomes your team's North Star. In other words, it's what guides your team. The product vision defines what the product is, how it supports the customer's business strategy, and who will use it. Next, there's the product roadmap, which the product owner is responsible for creating and maintaining. It provides a high-level view of the expected product, its requirements, and an estimated schedule for reaching milestones. It's key to making sure your team is building the right thing. The third component of a value roadmap is a series of release plans. The product owner and project manager work together to develop these plans. Product releases occur when the team has developed a basic working version of a given feature or requirement. A release plan includes the approximate date when the team is expected to release and deliver certain features to the customer or user. An Agile team may have several releases over the course of a project until their project is considered done. For this reason, only the first release date should be considered to be set in stone. The rest of the release plan is based on early estimates and is subject to change as the project proceeds. A release plan contains a release goal, which is an overall business goal for the features you plan to include in the release. The list of backlog items, such as epics, user stories, or features that you require for that release goal, an estimated release date, and any other relevant dates that impact a release, like a convention or major holiday. It's important to add all of your release plans to your value roadmap to help you stay focused on the path to your overall value goal. In summary, the value roadmap contains 3 key components: the product vision, product roadmap, and release plan. These 3 work together to help an Agile team reach its goals through multiple iterations. A value roadmap only works if the team is collaborative and all stakeholders work together regularly. This will ensure that the project achieves results that align with the Agile values and principles. Awesome! Now you know how to create a value roadmap. In the next video, I'll share some tips that will help you create an effective value roadmap. Hello, and welcome to Agile Project Management. So far, this program has covered the foundations of project management and what it takes to be a project manager. We've explored the phases of the project lifecycle: initiation, planning, execution, and closing. And we've reviewed lots of different tools and techniques for managing and communicating your plans. We've also discussed how to handle various challenges, risks, and issues that come up along the way. If you've completed all the courses so far, congratulations. If you're just now joining, welcome. Either way, you're on your way to a new, or maybe just improved, career in project management. Now that you have a solid foundation on what it takes to manage a project, I'm going to share with you one of the most popular approaches to delivering projects: Agile. In my opinion, Agile is also the most interesting and flexible approach to project management. Agile is not a project management methodology in and of itself, but more of an overarching approach and philosophy to deliver value to customers, which is the goal of most projects. Despite not being a specific methodology, there are lots of frameworks and methods under the Agile umbrella. In this course, I'll help prepare you for a career in Agile project management. I'll provide you with a history of Agile and introduce you to a specific Agile delivery framework called Scrum. I'll teach you about the core roles that make up a Scrum team. And finally, I'll cover some best practices and real-world scenarios where you can use the Agile approach to lead your project to success. Oh, and I should probably introduce myself. My name is Sue, and I'm a Senior Technical Program Manager with Google Support Platform. We build the products you use to get user support from nearly all of Google's products. I started at Google in 2014 and worked on product reliability, making sure Google's products are up and running all the time for billions of people across the world who depend on them. Before Google, I worked at many companies of different types and sizes, where I ran and worked on projects using Waterfall, Agile, and everything in between. I started my career as a software engineer working on cell phone technology, but I didn't have a degree in computer science. Since then, I've had many different roles, but program management is my passion because it brings all of the disciplines together to deliver amazing outcomes for the customers and equally amazing results for the business. I still remember the aha moment I had when I discovered Agile, and I'm excited to share it with you. I hope you're ready to discover Agile and experience your own aha moment. In the next video, we'll start learning the basics of Agile. Meet you there. Hi there. In this video, we'll go through some of the challenges you might encounter during a change process that are specific to Agile teams. As the project manager or Scrum Master, it's your responsibility to help teams improve how they work and coach them on how to effectively adopt Scrum practices. So anticipating and understanding how to work through common challenges before they happen is super important. Remember the 4 themes of Agile Principles that we discussed in an earlier video? To refresh your memory, the themes are value delivery, business collaboration, team dynamics and culture, and retrospectives. In this video, we'll focus on challenges you might encounter with an Agile team that are related to the first 3 themes. The first set of challenges are related to value delivery, which is about making sure the team is delivering working solutions frequently. Some signs that your team is experiencing value delivery issues could include things like the team has started missing expected delivery dates and is taking a lot longer than usual to complete tasks. Or you might notice that the team seems burned out, is working long hours, and showing signs of exhaustion. Or maybe the team has too many items in progress at any given time, preventing tasks from actually getting to done. If you start to notice your team is struggling in these areas, there are a few things you can do to help. You can try doing more demos of the solutions with the team to ensure they're delivering on the value roadmap. When the team pauses to take in a big picture view of the working product, they often notice areas where they can improve and speed up the work. You can also use retrospectives to ask the team if anything is slowing them down, like waiting on dependencies or communication challenges. It can also help to do a quick review with the team and make sure that everyone understands what done means. And finally, be sure to focus on only a few user stories per sprint. This ensures the team finishes an item together before moving on. Putting all this into practice can be harder than you might think. My current team is asked to cover a lot of ground in each sprint, so it can be tempting for us to try and tackle too much at once. But doing that usually just makes everything take longer, so it's not actually helpful. It's better to maintain focus and deliver fewer backlog items in one sprint than to deliver a lot of items in more sprints. Okay, another set of challenges you might encounter relate to the business collaboration theme. To recap, business collaboration is about making sure the developers are collaborating with business people on how to build the right product. There are a few common signs that your team might be experiencing business collaboration issues. You might notice that the team is overwhelmed with critical feedback or change requests from business people after they reviewed the working solution. That could lead to people on your team avoiding asking for feedback or complaining about requested changes coming from the product owner or business team. Or you might start to detect an us versus them mentality between the team doing the work and management. I've sometimes noticed this manifest in negative comments from team members, like, "Oh, don't give a demo to the salesperson. It's not ready yet," and they'll just point out what's wrong. If you notice any of these signs, there are a few things you can do to help rebuild trust and collaboration between the developers and the business people. To start with, try addressing critical feedback and change requests by doing more demos. This ensures feedback comes in at a steady pace and that everyone involved has a shared understanding of what done means. Next, consider conducting a solution design sprint, which is an entire sprint spent working solely on the solution design. These are most effective when the working team and the business people actually sit together and collaborate on the solution. Finally, you can help your team focus by ensuring changes to the backlog are introduced only in between sprints. This prevents your team from getting distracted by possible changes, which could stress them out and lead to resentment. For example, I was once on a Scrum team where the engineering director loved to stop by the engineer's desk to ask for a quick dashboard, which is a web page that shows data. Asking the engineer to do this completely disrupted the team's focus and slowed down the team's velocity. We finally decided to ask the director to come straight to the Scrum Master when they needed something so that it could be planned properly and not interrupt the team's current workflow. Okay, let's move on to the third theme, team dynamics and culture. Human beings are complex creatures with lots of different motivations and styles of working, so it's likely that you'll encounter at least a few challenges in this area. Here are a few common signs of team dynamics and culture issues to watch out for. First is low team morale. If people are super grumpy, irritated, or generally in a bad mood, then you might have some underlying team dynamics issues to sort out. Next, watch out for signs that the team is experiencing lots of conflict. If people are arguing a lot and issues aren't getting resolved, the team probably needs some help. Not everyone is going to get their way. If team members feel resentful or are holding on to grudges, it'll negatively impact the team's performance. And finally, and this might surprise you, but low conflict can also be a sign that the team's experiencing issues. We're usually taught to believe that no conflict is a good thing, right? But if a team never has disagreements, it's a sign that they might be worried about starting a conflict because they don't feel like it's a safe environment. Being open and courageous are two of our Scrum values, but it's not always easy to put them into practice. As a project manager, part of your role is helping your team get comfortable being honest with each other and working through conflicts together. If you notice these or any other clear signs of team distress, here are some ideas you can try. You could run a team brainstorm session about how to work better together. Ask the team to identify some areas to improve on. An example exercise could involve asking the team to write down stories about the worst team they've ever worked on and the best team they've ever worked on, then sharing them in a meeting. Then you might have the team create a list of do's and don'ts for working together based on the stories everyone shared. Another idea is to change up the workflows. Try pairing up people to work together on a hard task, or change up the way you run one of your regular meetings. It can also help to take a training class together, or watch a video about team dynamics and discuss it as a group. You can also try a retrospective technique from the internet. There are a ton of great resources out there. One of my favorite retrospective techniques is called the 6 hats thinking technique. In this technique, each team member chooses a different hat to explore the subject of the retrospective. The different hats each involve a different objective, like discussing positives or negatives that happened during the sprint, or sharing emotive statements. This helps ensure that the team takes a well-rounded approach to the retrospective. All right, that's it for this video. Now you've got some idea of some of the common challenges Agile teams might face and how to address them. Coming up, we'll explore some more issues you might encounter as a project manager or Scrum Master. Hi again. You may remember earlier courses in this program that provided an introduction to waterfall and Agile project management methodologies. Now we're going to get more in-depth and really expand your understanding of these popular approaches. In this video, I'm going to give you a brief history of Agile and introduce you to the Agile values and principles. And you'll learn that Agile can be and is used in lots of different industries. Ready? Let's get started. To quickly review, waterfall is a popular project management methodology that refers to the sequential or linear ordering of phases. You complete one phase at a time, not proceeding to the next until it is done. Then, you move down the line, like a waterfall, starting at the top of a mountain and traveling to the bottom. The term Agile refers to being able to move quickly and easily. It also refers to flexibility and the willingness and ability to change and adapt. Projects that adopt Agile project management take an iterative approach. which means that the project processes are repeated, often many times during the lifecycle of the project. In this case, the team operates within many shorter blocks of time, called iterations. Individual iterations might get repeated depending on the feedback received. During each iteration, the team takes a subset of all the project's activities and does all the work required to complete that subset of activities. You can think of it as a lot of mini waterfalls for each activity. This iterative approach enables the project to move quickly, as well as making it much more adaptive to change. So the term Agile means flexibility, repetition, and openness to change. But what do we mean by Agile project management? Agile project management is an approach to project and team management based on the Agile Manifesto. The manifesto is a collection of 4 values and 12 principles that define the mindset that all Agile teams should strive for. So in very basic terms, waterfall is linear and sequential and does not encourage changing up the process once it has started. Agile, on the other hand, is iterative, flexible, and incorporates necessary changes throughout the process. Now, a bit of a history lesson, so you can have a better sense of how and why Agile has become such a popular approach to project management. Agile methodologies emerged organically during the 1990s as the software industry was booming. Software startups, like Google, were blazing a trail to get more software products built in less time. Meanwhile, the tech giants of the time were experimenting with faster ways to build better software and stay competitive. And by the way, software isn't just the apps and websites that we all use every day. Software also includes the code behind innovations in agriculture, medical devices, manufacturing, and more. So in this competitive, growing environment, companies couldn't just create new innovative products, they also needed to innovate the very processes they were using to develop those new products. In 2001, the thought leaders and creators of some of these new processes, also called methodologies, came together to find common ground between their methods and solve a problem. The problem, they agreed, was that companies were so focused on planning and documenting their project that they lost sight of what really mattered, pleasing their customers. So these leaders came up with the Agile Manifesto to guide others on what they believed really matters when developing software, which is keeping the process flexible and focusing on people, both the team and the users, over the end products or deliverables. Now here's where Agile gets even more interesting. You can still use Agile even if you're not planning to work on software projects. Agile has been so successful in the software industry that its values, principles, and frameworks have been applied to nearly every industry. In fact, the Agile methods that you're going to learn also draw heavily on lean manufacturing principles that originated in Toyota's car factories in the 1930s. You'll also find Agile methods being adopted in the aeronautical, healthcare, education, finance industries, and even more. Cool, right? Agile is everywhere. Now you know a little bit about the history of Agile, the origin of the Agile Manifesto, and some of the industries that use Agile for project management. Coming up next, we'll compare more of the differences between Waterfall and Agile to really familiarize yourself with these project management styles. Hello. In the last video, I gave you a brief history lesson of Agile and introduced the Agile Manifesto, which states the Agile values and principles. We'll get into the manifesto, values, and principles in more detail coming up. But before we do that, let's spend some more time comparing Agile and Waterfall. I want to really illustrate the key elements of Agile that distinguish it from Waterfall. Then you'll be able to build on this knowledge when we get into the manifesto later on. So, as I mentioned in the history lesson, Agile was created in response to the strict linear process of Waterfall. While Waterfall aims for predictability and tries to avoid change, Agile embraces the reality that the world, markets, and users are uncertain and unpredictable. For example, your customer might say they want feature A, but when the final result is delivered, they realize they actually wanted feature B. Agile aims to solve that problem by getting customer feedback more quickly to make sure that the team is building what the customer really wants. Part of working with an Agile mindset is always seeking out ways to work more efficiently. We do this by finding ways to streamline processes without reducing product quality or value. The key to streamlining is to reduce waste. For example, unnecessary documentation is a form of waste. Another form of waste is spending weeks or months working on a feature only to find out that the customers, who could also be users or stakeholders, don't like the feature after all. You could reduce or eliminate both of these forms of waste by increasing team and stakeholder collaboration. More collaboration means less documentation and earlier feedback about the product. Let's consider some more differences between Waterfall and Agile. 3 important aspects of a project are requirements, documentation, and deliverables. Requirements are conditions that must be met or tasks that must be finished to ensure the successful completion of the project. Think of these as the set of criteria that fall within the scope of your project, or a list of specifications that must be met. In a waterfall project, you'll probably need a product requirements document, which lists the scope and requirements of the project. You need to have several formally approved project plans, and you might have a team of people whose job it is just to write and approve these plans. You might also set up a change control board, a formal and rigorous process to manage any changes to requirements. All this is designed to protect the team from building something that the client or stakeholders don't want, and aims to minimize any changes that could lead to scope creep. Formally approved project plans work well when the desired end product is known and understood. An example of this might be leading a project that has clear requirements and goals based on mandated regulation. But if that's not the case, a waterfall team risks building out an entire deliverable only to find out later that the customer doesn't like the final result. In Agile, requirements are treated as more dynamic and expected to change as the team receives feedback and new information. There is usually an initial set of requirements or feature ideas when the project kicks off, but that list of requirements and features is continuously growing and changing throughout the project. The team works with stakeholders to prioritize the requirements, always moving the most urgent or valuable items to the top of the list. Then, the team goes down the list, working on the requirements in iterations. By going down the list, the team is able to get feedback on their work quickly and frequently. At the end of each iteration, the team gets feedback and can make necessary adjustments to the requirements before continuing on. Okay, the second aspect is documentation. All projects require documentation. Project plans, stakeholder maps, schedules, charters, contracts, the list goes on and on. Waterfall projects use lots of documentation because there are lots of handoffs between phases and handoffs among different teams within the project. Also, because the work is done in bigger chunks, you'll need to leave behind more pieces of documentation at each stage in the project. But in Agile, there's an emphasis on real-time, person-to-person conversations. This doesn't mean that there's zero documentation. It's just in a different form. Instead of big formal documents with a rigorous change management and approval process, there are shorter documents that have just enough detail to achieve their purpose. These documents are much more focused on what the reader needs to know to get the job done and are written only as needed. Finally, let's explore deliverables. A deliverable is a tangible outcome from a project. In waterfall projects, you often don't release the deliverable until the very end. The final product release feels like a big event, major announcement, lots of hoopla, and is often super fun and exciting. Agile is just as exciting, but has smaller, more frequent releases. So each release has a less formal celebration, but it builds up to be just as exciting. When there's lots of uncertainty in a project, such as in a new emerging industry or market, the steady release of project deliverables enables an Agile team to get feedback and learn as they go. Without regular feedback, the team could end up delivering something that the customer doesn't want. So, now you have a better idea of some key elements of Agile that distinguish it from Waterfall. 3 differences between these 2 project management approaches are the way each one deals with requirements, documentation, and deliverables. Follow me to the next video, where you'll get to know the Agile Manifesto up close and personal. Hi there. Now that you're more familiar with the history of Agile and how it's applied to project management, let's discuss the inspiration behind this Agile movement, the Agile Manifesto. In this video, I'll list the 4 values of Agile and describe how each Agile team needs to strike a balance between the 4 values. Being familiar with the Agile Manifesto will help you understand the core principles and values of Agile project management so you can put them into practice on a project. The Agile Manifesto was written in 2001 and brings together the collective wisdom of the people who developed it from their vast experience and thought leadership in the tech industry. If you'd like to find the manifesto, it's easy. Just type in agilemanifesto.org in your search browser. We've made it available for you here in the course readings as well. Let's check it out. The Manifesto for Agile Software Development states, "We are uncovering better ways of developing software by doing it and helping others do it. Through this work, we have come to value individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, responding to change over following a plan. That is, while there is value in the items on the right, we value the items on the left more." There you have it, the Agile Manifesto and the 4 values of Agile. It's a short list, but it packs a punch. The manifesto is saying that it's helpful for every Agile team to think about both sides of each statement during the execution of a project, but should find ways to ensure that they're always placing more value and emphasis on the things on the left over the things on the right. From the 4 values, a set of 12 principles were developed that reinforce the message of the manifesto. These values and principles inform the why, how, and what of Agile project management planning and processes. Let's take it from the top. First, the manifesto emphasizes individuals and interactions over processes and tools. At its core, this value stresses people communicating with each other over using lots of processes and tools to force things to happen in a certain way. For example, have you ever emailed someone with a question and ended up in a long back and forth exchange due to simple follow-up questions or clarifications? Chances are that you could have gotten the same information in less time with a brief conversation. Agile wants to ensure that teams work together, collaborate, and help each other achieve the best outcomes they can. Agile also values individual perspectives and creativity. This does not mean that every team is chaotic. The value just means that processes and tools should be used to facilitate and drive good project management and improved collaboration within the team, and should never be used as a barrier to teams working well with each other. The second value emphasizes working software over comprehensive documentation, meaning that teams should prioritize spending time working on things that actually create value and avoid spending any more time than they really need on debating, writing, and reviewing documents. Now, this value might seem like it only applies to software projects, but just replace the term working software with whatever your project is trying to deliver. Maybe the project is writing a legal brief, designing an office layout, or preparing a sales presentation. Whatever your project is trying to deliver is the thing that creates value. In other words, it's more important to deliver the product the customer wants than to comprehensively document the process that you used. On to the third value, customer collaboration over contract negotiation. In Agile projects, the customer satisfaction is considered the highest priority of building a high-quality and valuable product. After all, if it's not valuable to the customer, then there's little point spending time on it. When the manifesto discusses contracts, it refers to the official documents that require sign-off and formal agreement with the customer, such as those huge requirement documents or formal change requests. Agile values having the freedom to collaborate with customers early and often. In doing so, teams can quickly react and adapt to what customers need rather than waiting out the process of negotiating contract terms just to make a few changes or request resources. There will still be contracts with Agile project management, but the focus is on identifying what's really needed and leaving space for collaborative, customer-focused work. Agile teams are encouraged to seek out every opportunity to include the customer or stakeholder during project execution. This could be presenting early prototypes, asking questions, or bringing them in to do some initial product testing. And finally, we have the fourth value, responding to change over following a plan. This last value is crucial to an Agile project. As I explained in the history overview, Agile grew out of a world that was changing so fast that organizations couldn't adapt and struggled to survive. As a result, this value stresses that every Agile team needs to acknowledge that change is inevitable. The larger, longer, and more complex your project is, the more uncertainty there is. For many projects, finalizing a well-established plan at the beginning of the project will likely lead to an on-time delivery within budget, but may run the risk of not meeting customer needs or adding maximum value. As a project manager, the key takeaway to remember here is that the most successful projects are the ones that are able to smoothly integrate change. Agile project managers still create and value their plans, but they can cope with and are able to adapt if the plans need revising at any time during the project. So there you have it, the 4 Agile values: individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, and responding to change over following a plan. What's great about Agile is that it gives us these values and also lets us find the right balance between the two sides. You may have to fine-tune your project style to meet industry needs, team dynamics, and organizational goals to find the healthy balance that works for you and your team. And that's why you're here. By familiarizing yourself with different project management approaches, values, and principles, you will be more equipped to manage all types of projects in all types of industries. Awesome. Let's keep going. Meet me in the next video to learn more about the principles of Agile. Hey there. In the last video, I introduced the Agile Manifesto and the 4 values of Agile. Next, I'm going to tell you about the 12 principles of Agile. These principles reinforce the message of the 4 values and provide some additional clarity. There's definitely a benefit in studying each of these independently, and I've provided supplemental resources for you to study on your own. For this course, I've grouped the 12 principles into 4 themes. These are different from the 4 values. The 4 themes of the Agile principles are value delivery, or how do Agile teams deliver highly valuable products to their customers; business collaboration, or how do Agile teams collaborate with their business partners and stakeholders to create business value to the organization and their users; team culture, or how does a team create and maintain the right interpersonal and team dynamics to deliver value for the customers and the business; and retrospectives, or how does the project learn to continuously increase performance of an organization and business. As I said, I've grouped each of the 12 principles under these themes so they're easier to learn and remember. Let's dive in. The first theme is value delivery and includes 5 principles. Take a few seconds to review them. This theme is about delivering the work as quickly as possible. And remember why? So that we can get feedback and mitigate the risk that we spend too much time building the wrong thing. Also, no one gets any value from your work, including your company, until you deliver it. So the longer you take to deliver, the longer you wait to get revenue, and maybe the more time the competition has to get ahead of you. These may look very software-oriented, but if you replace the word software with deliverables or solutions, these can apply to almost any project. For example, deliver working solutions frequently. See? The value theme is also about simplicity. How much time do you think it takes engineers to add all the buttons and features to products that ultimately end up confusing the user? Simplicity allows a team to focus and work on the things that matter the most. An example of this theme in action might be prioritizing getting feedback on a product prototype, so you know which features really matter. Or it might mean ensuring the team only works on approved features and doesn't spend time on unnecessary ones. Another example might be reserving 10% of the team's time to work on bug fixing or polishing a process, which should help you go faster in future iterations. The next theme is business collaboration and includes 2 more principles. Quick note, one of the principles uses the term business people to refer to those involved with things like sales, marketing, customer support, and account management. We'll use the term developers to refer to those who are involved with making and creating products. Okay, so we discussed customer collaboration during the values discussion, and here we are again. Collaborating with your customers helps the team get critical business information immediately, allowing them to adjust and adapt to any new information instantly. No matter if it's realized early or late in the project, customers will get what they want to achieve their business goals. You could achieve collaboration by making sure that business people work near the development team, ideally in the same office or virtual space. If that's not possible, maybe co-locating a day a week, encouraging instant messaging, or blocking off time on your team calendars each day or week to collaborate. The goal is to enable easy access between business people and developers. Another example might be how you handle feedback and changes in priorities. Rather than trying to keep the customer away from developers due to concerns about scope creep, create a weekly huddle where customers and business people can explore feedback and new ideas with the team. This could be a great way to discover that one really valuable feature is super easy to build, whereas another feature the users thought would be easy is actually really hard. Our third theme is team dynamics and culture, and includes 4 more principles. Remember, the first Agile value stresses individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Notice that the principles in this theme reflect that value. This theme emphasizes creating an effective team culture that is inclusive, supportive, and empowering. Having an effective team culture is essential to a project's success. These principles really boil down to making sure your team is motivated to do the right thing, feels trusted to do the right thing, has the resources and space to work closely together on their goals, and works at a sustainable pace. An example of emphasizing effective team culture would be to ask the team what kind of equipment they need to do their job, and then giving them those tools. Another manifestation of this theme is letting teams write their own processes and templates, rather than forcing them to use something from headquarters. Teams work best when they feel like their input is valued, so you, as the project manager, should make space for your team to engage and actively contribute to the team culture. You'll build trust and empower them to approach their work in a way that suits them best, which in turn will allow them to work more productively. Finally, the fourth theme is retrospectives and continuous learning. The last principle stands alone in this theme, so I'll read it aloud. At regular intervals, the team reflects on how to become more effective, then tunes and adjusts its behavior accordingly. This one sits on its own because I want to draw attention to how important it is for Agile teams to continuously learn and adapt to what's working and what's not working for them. Teams should always be figuring out better ways to work, and it's really valuable to set this time aside after each iteration to focus entirely on how to improve. In these sessions, the team can step back and consider questions like, how is the team doing? Are the customers happy? Are there processes we could optimize? Are our tools working for us? Are we following the values? Are we accumulating any debt? And by debt, I mean processes or technology that slows us down. We've officially finished discussing the Agile Manifesto. It's amazing to think that these 4 values and 12 principles are the foundations of so many advances in project management. I'll come back to these values and principles throughout the rest of this course to demonstrate how these connect to the day-to-day activities of an Agile project. In the next video, we'll explore what types of industries benefit the most from an Agile approach. Hi there. Every project exists within organizations and settings with different cultures, business objectives, and industry dynamics. In this video, we'll discuss some different scenarios in which you'd want to adopt an Agile mindset. I'll also introduce you to a concept called VUCA that can help you decide which management approach is best for your project. Remember, Agile is about delivering value in a world with high degrees of uncertainty, risk, and competition. It sets a team up to react as quickly as possible to new information, new market opportunities, and even new technologies. Agile works best in industries or projects that are susceptible to or that encourage change and uncertainty. What kinds of businesses or industries besides software come to mind that deal with lots of change? A few that I think of are biotechnology, with emerging vaccines, treatments, and technologies. Media, with endless new ways to share content. The food industry, with celebrity chefs and the latest food craze. And fashion, an industry built on keeping up with shifting trends. Did any of these surprise you? On the flip side, here are some industries that you might think of as fairly stable: agriculture, aerospace, manufacturing, and mining. But even these industries, with rigorous supply chains and codes, have to adapt to change due to new laws and regulations, natural disasters, and other unforeseen issues. One thing that the year 2020 taught all of us is that no industry is truly immune to change and uncertainty. We're going to explore a concept for categorizing and thinking about these forces that shape our world, no matter what industry we're in. That concept is called VUCA, and it can help you decide which project management approach is best for you. The U.S. Military War College developed a concept called VUCA, spelled V-U-C-A. VUCA is an acronym that defines the conditions that affect organizations in a changing and complex world. It was designed to help us factor in the forces of change and uncertainty in our projects and businesses. VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. I'll explain each one and what that could entail in projects and business settings. First up is volatility. Volatility refers to the rate of change and churn in a business or situation. In a volatile project, you would discuss how the next disruption to your operations is always right around the corner, or it feels like things never have time to settle into a normal rhythm. Next is uncertainty. Uncertainty refers to the lack of predictability or high potential for surprise. In an uncertain environment, it would be difficult to create plans for the future that were not based on a large number of assumptions that could turn out to be incorrect. Then there's complexity. Complexity refers to the high number of interrelated forces, issues, organizations, and factors that would influence the project. For example, if one product being worked on relied on diverse and global suppliers, that would add to the complexity of the project. And finally, we have ambiguity. Ambiguity refers to the possibility of misunderstanding the conditions and root causes of events or circumstances. A project that suffered from ambiguity would have difficulty pinpointing the causes of project delays, making it difficult to design mitigation plans to reduce the risks. Let's recap. VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. It's a concept that was developed to deal with these forces in a changing and uncertain world. Businesses can apply the concept of VUCA as a tool for determining how best to approach projects. Phew, that's a lot of info, but it's all good stuff. Having an understanding of these concepts will help with decision-making in all kinds of projects. Adopting an Agile approach increases your chances of success despite this uncertainty. And these concepts apply to the business world at large, not just projects. Let's take a little break. Then we'll wrap up this section by checking in with Office Green, the example business for this course, to find out how they can apply these new concepts from Agile and VUCA to a new project. Welcome back. In the last video, I taught you about VUCA. Can you remember what it stands for? Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Great. In this video, we'll examine a project scenario with high VUCA parameters and how the Office Green team applied an Agile approach. Now, let's discuss why it's important to understand VUCA as it relates to project management. When we get started on a new project, it's helpful to examine the environment and conditions in which the project exists before we decide the best approach to use. If your project environment has high levels of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, then it's a good sign that you should consider an Agile approach. While an Agile approach is not a perfect solution that will get rid of VUCA, it will lead to better outcomes by giving you and your team tools and systems to mitigate the risks that VUCA presents. When you consider Agile values and principles, it's clear that Agile is a proven and well-documented solution to the challenges VUCA presents to your project. Okay, let's revisit the Office Green scenario we introduced earlier in the program. We'll use this scenario throughout this course as well, to illustrate the power of an Agile approach to project management. If you're just joining us now, I'll give you a quick recap. In previous courses, learners acted as the lead project manager at Office Green LLC, a commercial landscaping company focused on interior plant design for offices, restaurants, and hotels. For this Agile course, we'll come back to Office Green as they pursue a new business opportunity. The Office Green market research team noticed a major shift to more workers setting up and working from a home office. They wanted to react fast to a potentially huge market opportunity and not lose revenue if businesses had less need for their previous office service. Instead of offering indoor landscaping designs for businesses, Office Green wants to find a way to capture this new market full of home offices. I don't know about you all, but I have a hard time keeping plants alive. I can't keep a cactus alive. But I love all those video conference backgrounds that are so nicely decorated with beautiful live plants. This shift to working from home came about suddenly, so Office Green didn't have any project plans to start from. They didn't have time to do a lot of prep work, but they wanted to maximize this opportunity before it was too late. To do this, Office Green assigned you to be the project manager of a scrappy new Agile team. Your goal is to deliver their new service called Virtual Verde. What environment did Office Green face? Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. They experienced volatility in the form of a major disruptive change to their business plans. Uncertainty through a lack of predictability, which made it difficult to create concrete plans for the future. A high level of complexity due to interrelated factors like suppliers and the economy, and they experienced ambiguity by not being able to determine or control what might cause future changes. By using an Agile approach to their project, Office Green was able to address high VUCA factors that were affecting their business. Instead of business slowly or quickly eroding due to market forces, Office Green embraced the changing market and remained flexible in how they approached their next project. We'll follow along with Office Green and your work as a project manager of Virtual Verde throughout this course and find out how you do. Hi again. There are many popular Agile methodologies that are still around from the 90s when Agile was invented. These methodologies share Agile values and principles, but have very specific practices and applications. In this video, I'll touch on a few of the most popular ones besides Scrum, which we covered in the last video. First, one of my personal favorites is Kanban. This is a methodology that can be applied in a very simple way, or it can be used to drive the entire project. The Kanban name comes from two Japanese words, kan, meaning sign, and ban, meaning board. You may have already used a Kanban board because it's the most famous feature adopted by the majority of Agile enthusiasts. The reason Kanban is so popular is that it provides transparent, visual feedback to everyone who might be interested about the status of work in progress. Kanban boards or charts display the progress of a project as to do, in progress, and done. Also, just so you know, there are software tools that create digital Kanban boards for you. The Kanban method ensures that the project team only accepts a sustainable amount of in-progress work. This means the amount of in-progress tasks are limited to what the team can actually handle during a certain amount of time. This is called the Work in Progress Limit, or WIP limit. The WIP limit is decided on by the team. This is a reflection of Agile in that teams are both self-organizing and empowered, and they're operating at a sustainable pace. The team members add new tasks to be completed only after they've finished their previous task and are below the WIP limit. This approach means that once a task has started to be worked on, it becomes a priority for the whole team to get it done. By focusing on less work, the work gets done faster. This goal of trying to maximize efficiency is called flow and is a core principle of Kanban. Another Agile methodology is extreme programming, or XP. It was named that because it took traditional software development activities to an extreme level, but I also believe it's because it emerged at the same time as extreme sports, like snowboarding. XP is another one of my personal favorites. It was the first Agile methodology I was introduced to back in my days working on some of the original cell phones at Qualcomm, the company behind the radio technology we all use in our phones today. Since XP came out of the software industry, it refers to specific software terms and activities, like coding and programming. But the XP method can be used in lots of non-software environments as well. The XP methodology aims to improve product quality and the ability to respond to changing customer needs. It does this by taking best practices for the development process to extreme levels. For example, one best practice is the idea of test-first development. This means testing out parts of the product before building them in full. Often, only the larger features get tested, which is still good, but means some details might get missed. XP takes this practice to the extreme by finding ways to test more and smaller features of the product to get even more feedback. There are 4 basic activities that are performed during the product development process that the XP method tries to enhance. Designing. In software development, this is where you write a design document describing the parts of the code or instructions for the product and how it will function. In non-software environments, this would be describing the various pieces and parts for whatever it is you're trying to deliver. For example, if you're delivering an ad campaign, maybe the main pieces are the artwork, the copy, and the ad buy plan. XP wants to ensure that all of the pieces of the product will fit together properly, so it stresses simplicity. Start with a simple design to meet the most basic and important requirements. Simple designs also take less time to complete. Once the basic model is designed and has been tested, then you can think about adding on other features. Coding. Code is the language that's used to write software programs. It's the instructions that tell the computer what to do. In software development, writing clear code is crucial, just like clear writing is crucial in any situation where you want to be understood. XP demands clear and concise code so that others can easily read and understand the program. This makes it easier to troubleshoot problems and come up with solutions. In non-software environments, code would be similar to writing clear and concise processes or instructions for how to build or use your product. Testing, like I described earlier, means checking the product for flaws so they don't end up in the final product. In XP, more is better, so if a little bit of testing can eliminate a few flaws, lots of testing will eliminate even more. The goal is to test for and eliminate any flaws in a feature before building it and continuing on. Testing also means checking to make sure the product features meet the customer's requirements. Which leads us to listening, which is about listening to the customer and ensuring that the requirements are integrated into the product. This relates to Agile in the way that it values customer collaboration, frequent communication, and regular feedback. XP features some other innovative practices that are used across many Agile teams, regardless of the specific methodology being used. First, there's pair programming, which is when 2 team members work together at the same time on one task. Usually, this is done in the same physical location, but with the use of digital collaboration tools, this can happen remotely too. Another practice is continuous integration and continuous refactoring. This is the practice of merging product changes into a shared version several times a day in order to get quick feedback on the quality of the code or product. Then there's avoid big design up front. This relates to designing and means the design should be just enough to get started and should be continuously improved as the product evolves. And finally, there's write tests, not requirements. This means that instead of writing a product requirements document and then later writing a test plan, your test plan can serve 2 purposes by A, telling the team what to build, and B, comparing what they built to what was supposed to be built. Okay, so we've got Scrum, Kanban, and XP. Let's explore one more. For those of you who took the earlier courses in this program, you already learned a little bit about this final methodology, called Lean, in the context of Lean Six Sigma. Lean methodology consists of 5 principles that serve as a recipe for improving project outcomes. They are define value, map value stream, create flow, establish pull, and pursue perfection. Let's break these down. Define value means identifying and focusing on what the customer wants and including the customer in the process. A product's value is the sum of all the things the customer wants. Map value stream means mapping out the process or stream, including all the steps involved in producing value for the customer. It also means challenging any steps that can be considered wasteful or unnecessary. Create flow means ensuring the product flows through the value stream efficiently, continuing to eliminate waste throughout the cycle. Work to remove interruptions, delays, and barriers to the work stream. Establish pull. Think of asking someone to pull something off the shelf. You want to make sure the customer is pulling on the product or asking for it throughout the value stream. They might pull or ask for features and incremental deliveries. The idea is to make your process as smooth as possible so that the customer can pull on the product at any time and you'll be able to present what you've been working on or add a feature request. Finally, there's pursue perfection. This means pushing your team to continuously improve the first 4 process steps. So how does this relate to Agile? Well, Agile emerged after Lean, and the inventors of Agile were inspired to apply lean manufacturing principles to software development. Like Agile, Lean is a set of principles and a value system. Many of the differences are really just in the wording. Awesome. Now we know more about some other methodologies that are considered Agile. There are several more, but the reality is that many teams evolve and blend methods to create the tools and processes that work best for them. We'll discuss more about how to do this blending in the next video. Welcome back. So far, we've explored a little bit of Agile history, the Agile Manifesto, and some of the types of projects that benefit from an Agile approach. Up next, I'll introduce you to some specific methodologies under the Agile umbrella. The most popular of these by far is Scrum. In this video, I'll briefly recount the origins of Scrum and discuss the basics of Scrum methodology. So what the heck is Scrum? Well, I'll tell you first that it's not an acronym. If any of you have ever played or watched the sport of rugby, you may recognize the term. For those that aren't familiar with rugby, it's similar to American football, a full contact sport played on a field with a similar shaped ball. Scrum refers to a formation in rugby where all of the players on the team lean forward, lock their heads together, and then work as one unit to try and gain precious yards towards the scoring line. The originators of the Scrum methodology saw their team as a heads-down group working very closely together to get that ball down the field, just like Scrum in a rugby match. So how does the Scrum methodology work as a project management methodology? I'll give you a brief overview here, and we'll dive into it more throughout this course. If you work in Agile project management, it's highly likely that you'll use Scrum, or an approach that is based on Scrum. In the 2019 State of Agile report, 72% of teams using Agile methods were using Scrum or a hybrid. When you use Scrum for project management, you form a team that will work together to quickly develop and test a deliverable. The work is completed in short cycles, and the team meets daily to discuss current tasks and clear up anything that's blocking their progress. First, let's review some terms and concepts specific to Scrum. The backlog is the central artifact in Scrum where all possible ideas, deliverables, features, or tasks are captured for the team to work on. It's prioritized and proactively managed by the team continuously throughout the life of the project. The sprint is the name of the time-boxed period in Scrum where work is done. The sprint can be between 1 and 4 weeks long, but most sprints are around 2 weeks. This is often called the iteration. And then there's a practice called the daily Scrum, also called the stand-up. This is where the team meets for 15 minutes or less every day of the sprint to inspect their progress toward their goal. Next are the roles, the first of which is the Scrum Master. This role is responsible for ensuring that the team lives Agile values and principles, follows the processes and practices that the team agreed to, sharing information to the larger project team, and they also help the team focus on doing their best work. The other notable role in Scrum is the product owner, who is responsible for maximizing the value of the product and the work of the team. The product owner owns the inventory of work and has the final say on how to prioritize the work. And the development team is responsible for how a team will deliver that product. Scrum is popular for many reasons. First, it has clear roles and responsibilities for the folks on the team, while continuously emphasizing the power of the team as a whole. Scrum has a very regular and predictable meeting and delivery schedule, with predefined agendas and outcomes for the meetings, making it easy to teach new team members. It supports and reinforces the Agile values and principles, while adding some structure and foundations that help new Agile teams get started, and more experienced teams get better. And it's all free and open for all to use. Since it's the most commonly used Agile delivery framework, there's also a huge amount of guidance and support online, as well as Scrum-specific training and certifications. Scrum lends itself best to the following types of projects and teams. Ideally, a Scrum team should be cross-functional, with around 3 to 9 team members. Some call this a pizza-sized team, because it has the same amount of people who could share a large pizza. If the team is too small, you might not have the diversity of skills to get work done. If the team is too large, it gets hard to distribute information. Lastly, Scrum works best for projects where the team and management are open-minded, adaptable, and value continuously learning how to be a better team. Trying to force a team to do Scrum will almost always fail. Note that in all of these examples, I never once mentioned the word software. Although Scrum emerged from software projects, people have adapted Scrum to suit all kinds of projects, from wedding planning to house moves to building rockets. Great! You now know some of the key characteristics of Scrum and which types of projects can really benefit from it. It's an exciting method, and while we have much more to discuss before you can fully implement Scrum, we'll first discuss a few other popular Agile methodologies. Learning about these approaches will help you become a well-rounded, versatile member of any project team. So what are you waiting for? Meet me in the next video. Hello. In the last video, we reviewed a few of the more popular methods for applying Agile values and principles to your projects. We explored Kanban, which focuses on visualization and managing flow. XP, which is concerned with taking product development best practices to an extreme degree. And Lean, which actually predates Agile and aims to capture core principles that eliminate waste and deliver value to customers. We've also compared Agile to Waterfall to form a better understanding of what each approach values or tries to accomplish, and what kinds of projects they work best with. Throughout these videos, we've explored Agile project management in a couple of different ways. First, we explored Agile as a way of thinking about the project delivery process through the values and principles outlined in the Agile Manifesto. Second, we explored Agile through different project delivery frameworks and methods like Kanban, XP, and Lean, and especially through Scrum. These two ways of applying Agile demonstrate that the real power of Agile comes from not only adopting certain processes or strategies, but also from adopting a certain kind of mindset, one that is necessarily different from the traditional waterfall models. This means that you can still get some benefits from thinking in an Agile way, and seek to apply those Agile values and principles from the Agile Manifesto, even when you need to use a waterfall delivery approach. So, with all this Agile stuff bubbling around your heads, let's do a quick recap on some of the key tenets of traditional waterfall project management. Then, we'll explore some of the ways you can blend the methods and approaches you've just learned about to best fit the needs of a specific project. As we learned in earlier courses, a waterfall project lifecycle is made up of the following phases: initiation, planning, executing and completing tasks, and closing out the project. And all of the tasks within each of these phases, like identifying goals and scope, scheduling, budgeting, and risk management. Agile project management includes most of the same phases and tasks. They're just done in different ways. So even though these two approaches have clear differences, blending them might make a lot of sense, depending on the type of project or project team you're working with. Here are some reasons you might want to blend Agile and Waterfall styles. Your stakeholders, customers, or sponsors are more comfortable with traditional approaches and using workflows, or delivering traditional work products is easier for them to understand and follow. But your project team is already established in Scrum and they wish to continue. Maybe there are regulatory requirements that insist on certain traditional work processes, such as large requirement documents for certifications. Or it could be that one of the vendors involved in a large project is already following a traditional approach, and the integration between the teams requires some blending of methods. In these cases, a project manager might choose to blend aspects of Waterfall and Agile so that different parts of the project can be worked on in ways that meet project requirements, but don't negatively impact other parts of the project, or the project as a whole. Let's explore some more examples of how to blend methods. Let's say your project is to develop a software product. During the retrospective for the last sprint, a team member says, "I need to implement a certain feature, but I don't have much experience building that particular feature." Someone else on the team is an expert on that feature, so you decide to pair them up so they can work on building the feature together during the next sprint. You've just blended XP and Scrum. XP provides the basis for working in pairs from pair programming, and retrospectives are a key component of Scrum. Here's another incredibly common example. Most Scrum teams I know use a Kanban board to track their progress through their sprint. One word of warning though, watch out for too much change in how you do things. Teams work best when they can build up some consistency. Let's come back to Office Green. As project manager of Virtual Verde, what types of methods might you want to use to get the project started? Where would you blend some traditional methods and Agile methods? Here are some factors to consider. The existing plant suppliers are used to dealing with the original Plant Pals office delivery team. Some of them might be interested in experimenting with an Agile approach, but not all. In this case, you'll want to include those vendors in discussions early on to gain buy-in and address any concerns. Office Green also needs to really watch their costs, so you'll want to use traditional budget management controls to make sure they don't go over budget on their program. Well, that brings us to the end of this video. Let's review the key points I want you to take with you. First, Agile is a mindset, a way of thinking about the project delivery process through the values and principles outlined in the Agile Manifesto. Second, Agile values and principles can be achieved through certain frameworks and delivery methods, like Scrum, Kanban, XP, and Lean. And finally, Agile and Waterfall are both effective ways of approaching project management that add specific value. There are times when blending these styles will add even more value than sticking with just one, so don't be afraid to mix things up. As long as different parts of the project can benefit from certain processes without negatively impacting the project as a whole, go for it. Coming up, I'll teach you all about Scrum teams and how to use Scrum as a framework for running a successful project. It's going to be fun to take you on this journey. Way to go! You made it through a whirlwind introductory tour of Agile. We covered the history of Agile, the Agile Manifesto, and the 4 values and 12 principles of Agile. We explored when and why to adopt an Agile mindset. You learned about VUCA and how to use the concept to assess which approach to take with your project. You also learned some Agile-friendly methodologies, Kanban, XP, and Lean. Finally, you learned how to blend these methods with traditional waterfall practices. Then, you returned to Office Green as the project manager of a new Agile project, Virtual Verde. That's a lot. Congrats on making it through the first part of your Agile journey, and there's more fun to be had. I'll meet up with you in the next set of videos. Hi there! Earlier, we gave you an overview of the Agile mindset, which is based on the Agile Manifesto's 4 values and 12 principles. We covered the Agile values, principles, and a set of Agile methodologies that we can use to manage projects in an Agile way. Now, we're going to have a deep discussion about Scrum, the most commonly used Agile framework. The Scrum Guide, which contains everything you need to know about Scrum, is a main source of truth for Scrum teams and is available for free at scrumguides.org. We've also linked to it in the course resources. I'll often refer back to what's said in the definitive Scrum Guide, so please bookmark that site for future reference. The majority of my Agile project management experience is in Scrum, and fortunately for me, Scrum is used a lot at Google. Scrum is so prevalent that people sometimes use the terms Scrum and Agile interchangeably. To make this really clear, Agile is the foundational philosophy and mindset, while Scrum is a framework that materializes or brings that philosophy to life. In fact, Scrum came before the Agile Manifesto and served as an inspiration for the entire Agile philosophy. For the rest of this course, we'll focus on Scrum, which is the most popular project management framework. We also mentioned other frameworks in the last module, which you're welcome to revisit anytime as needed. Okay, let's discuss Scrum. We're going to start by exploring the theory behind Scrum, which has 3 pillars, and we'll explore the 5 Scrum values. I'll tell you why it's important for teams to have a set mission that they follow. I'll also introduce the roles within a Scrum team, the product owner, Scrum Master, and the development team. Lastly, I'm going to introduce all of these concepts to you using our new Office Green project. You probably remember Office Green as a company that handles plants and greenery for office buildings. Well, Office Green has a new project in the works called Virtual Verde, but we'll get into that later. You also learned that in Scrum projects, project managers typically take on the Scrum Master role. So in this scenario, you'll be the Scrum Master, working with the Scrum team, and you'll learn about Scrum artifacts, events, and what those entail. We're going to start with the 3 pillars of Scrum theory. Meet you in the next video. Just as Agile has core values that teams must adhere to, Scrum has its own set of pillars that act as a foundation for Scrum teams. I'll go through the 3 pillars of Scrum in this video. Let's start by looking at the theory behind Scrum so that we can learn the various methods and understand why they're effective. First, what is Scrum? The Scrum Guide defines Scrum as a framework for developing, delivering, and sustaining complex products. That means a team can use Scrum to create valuable products for their users, even when the environment or industry they're in is hard to predict and there are many risks. Scrum uses an iterative and incremental approach. Iterative refers to the fact that project processes are repeated. We discussed this a bit in the last module, but as a reminder, iterative means that the project works in time boxes or iterations. Incremental refers to the work being divided into smaller chunks that build on each other. The product is built over time through work done during each iteration. Each of these instances of the product is called an increment. Iterations and increments allow us to keep checking in on our progress throughout the life cycle of the project. This helps us become more predictable and manage the uncertainty in our project. Scrum is founded on a scientific theory called empiricism. This is a fancy word for a simple concept, that true knowledge comes from actual lived experience. The Scrum founders emphasize that we shouldn't try to assume that things will go exactly as planned or try to predict the future in an uncertain world. Instead, if you're using Scrum, you're ensuring that each decision you make in your project is based on real experience and hard data. So each iteration and increment is understood as a mini experiment where we can learn really valuable things to help improve the project. Empiricism is built on 3 foundational pillars. Those pillars are transparency, inspection, and adaptation. And they're also the 3 pillars of Scrum. First, there's transparency. Transparency means that we make the most significant aspects of our work visible to those responsible for the outcome. Everyone must be transparent. This includes everyone from Scrum team members to senior sponsors, and even our users. It's easier to be transparent with a small team, and luckily, Scrum teams are deliberately small, ranging between 3 and 9 people. This way, you avoid mixed signals, breakdowns of communication, and unnecessary complications. Transparency inside a Scrum team is critical to the team's productivity and the project's completion. In terms of transparency outside of the team, being transparent with all stakeholders, including customers, sponsors, and management, builds a level of trust between everyone involved. Transparency also encourages more collaboration and fewer mistakes. The second pillar of Scrum is inspection. Inspection refers to conducting timely checks towards the outcome of a sprint goal to detect undesirable variances. This means that we're always checking in on our progress and deliverables so that we can detect any undesirable changes. When teams work in an agile way, a stakeholder review of their work is a necessary opportunity for growth and progress. The more inspections that take place, the more improvement a team experiences in their work. There's real value to be gained from deliberate inspection while you have a chance to change and improve. Inspection also propels our next pillar, adaptation. Adaptation means that we're continuously searching for ways to adjust our project, product, or processes to minimize any further deviation or issues. In Scrum, and in Agile as a whole for that matter, we embrace change so that we are always improving. So when we adapt, we change aspects that do not work or could be better. Transparency and inspection give Scrum teams the information and opportunity they need to identify improvements or changes. Although adaptation includes immediate fixes to problems, it may also be about implementing a change so future projects don't repeat past mistakes. Now you know the 3 pillars that act as a foundation to Scrum: transparency, inspection, and adaptation. In the next video, we'll visit the 5 values that all Scrum teams adhere to. Meet you there. Hello again. In the previous video, we discussed Scrum theory and explored the 3 pillars of Scrum. In this video, we're going to talk about the 5 values of Scrum and how they relate to the 3 pillars. Having a value system as a team is great because you'll expect each other to act in a way that is aligned with these values. So let's get into it. Scrum teams work and behave according to 5 core values: commitment, courage, focus, openness, and respect. First, there's commitment. This means personally committing to achieving the goals of the Scrum team. For example, maybe a member of the team is struggling to overcome something that is blocking their work from getting done, like a new technology that is proving difficult to learn. In this case, another team member who is familiar with the technology can put their own work aside to step in and help their teammate learn the technology. The second value is courage. Scrum team members must have the courage to do the right thing and work on tough problems. In any project, there's a body of work that needs to get done. Some of the work will be relatively simple, and some will be complex, with many risks. An example of courage includes taking on a hard task that you know will require you to learn a new skill. Courage could mean telling your team that you're stuck and you need help. It might also mean calling out a negative behavior within the team to openly discuss and address the behavior. Demonstrating courage when responding to challenging situations can strengthen the team's resilience. Third, there's focus. This refers to everyone focusing on the necessary work within the sprint and the overall goals of the Scrum team. For example, a team member is working on a solution that involves a new technology and is very difficult. Allowing that team member to focus on that difficult yet necessary part of the solution is key, and their teammates help get it across the finish line. They know that focusing on this solution will speed up the team's progress in the long run, so it's worth the investment now. The Scrum Master, a role often assumed by the project manager, helps the team to focus on the sprint and product goals by facilitating their activities and events on a daily basis. The fourth value is openness. For Scrum to work, the team and its stakeholders agree to be open about all the work and the various challenges that come with performing the work. Openness is essential to a productive Scrum team. In order to gather data, team members must be willing to share their observations and experiences. If a team member runs into an issue within the project that they aren't sure how to fix, they should share it with the team. Another team member may have a very quick and easy solution, or at least valuable insight into some options on how to handle their issue. The fifth and final Scrum pillar is respect. Team members should respect the opinions, skills, and independence of their teammates. When you respect the independence and contributions of others and feel respected yourself, you're more likely to listen and hear any feedback. This is crucial in making the product or business as successful as possible. In order for a team to bring the 3 pillars of Scrum to life, they must act in accordance with the 5 Scrum values. For example, if a team aims to achieve transparency between themselves and their stakeholders, they need to be open to sharing information while still having the focus to share the most relevant information. For a team to effectively inspect their work and their processes, they must have courage to offer difficult feedback and have the mutual respect to really listen to what others have to say. For a team to adapt to their inspection results, they must have the courage to make changes and learn from them. They must also be committed to the goals of the team and follow through on the adaptation. Amazing! We've now covered the foundational pillars and values behind a Scrum team. We've also covered how the team supports Scrum values as they relate to Agile. Meet me in the next video where we'll discuss specific Scrum roles on a team. Hello again. Now that we've covered the theory behind Scrum, the next few videos will focus on the 3 Scrum roles that make up the Scrum team, their respective traits, and the Scrum team's mission. If you think of a team in the context of a team sport like soccer in the United States or football for our global learners, each position plays a certain role. You have strikers, wingers, defenders, goalkeepers, and more. Each player has their own responsibilities they must fulfill in order to try to win the game. The same is true for Scrum teams. And just like our Scrum name inspiration, the sport of rugby, the team is working toward a specific objective: to win. Let's start by discussing the team's product vision and mission. Remember, Scrum is an Agile methodology, so it embodies the values and principles of Agile. One of the Agile principles states, build projects around motivated individuals. Give them the environment and support they need, and trust them to get the job done. The best way to motivate individuals is to give them a mission and product vision that they really care about, so they can feel good about working towards it. In Agile, a mission is a short statement that stays constant for your team throughout the process and gives them something to work toward. In addition to the mission, an Agile team will also set a product vision, making it clear what outcomes the team is responsible for and where your team's boundaries are. This may sound a bit like management speak, but I like to think about it this way. A mission tells me why we're doing the work. A product vision helps me imagine what the work will be like when we're done. Let's think about the mission and product vision with Office Green's new Virtual Verde project. Virtual Verde delivers plants to people's home offices. Office Green's business development department came up with a mission for the project. Virtual Verde improves users' health and happiness by bringing their at-home workspace to life. A product vision created by the Scrum team might be, Virtual Verde is a living marketplace that transforms the home office. These two statements are meant to inspire the team to deliver a delightful experience for Virtual Verde's users. Now let's discuss Scrum team roles. Every Scrum team consists of 3 defined roles: a Scrum Master, a Product Owner, and the Development Team. These roles work together to achieve the team's objectives and realize the mission and vision. The Product Owner is responsible for what a team builds. They also must ensure everyone understands the why. For example, the Virtual Verde team needs a Product Owner to capture and promote the great ideas coming from the team about the new service, which is delivering plants to people who work from home. The Product Owner's job is to build the right thing. The Development Team is responsible for how a team will deliver that product. For example, creating a new website is next on our to-do list, so customers can order plants for their home office. The Development Team is building websites, integrating billing systems, and fixing issues. The Development Team's job is to build the thing right. The Scrum Master is responsible for when a team will deliver value to its users. This role is roughly equivalent to the project manager role in traditional projects. The Virtual Verde Scrum Master is helping unblock the team from getting things done, such as finding out why a vendor was late, or helping the team prioritize issues from users, or organizing the demo for the CEO. The Scrum Master's job is to build the thing fast. Although there are clearly defined roles on a Scrum team, it's important to note that the entire team works together to achieve its goals. In other words, although there are specific expectations for each role, the development team may still contribute ideas for the what and the when of a project, while the product owner may contribute to discussions on the how of the project. As a collective, Scrum teams must exhibit a few specific skills. The Scrum Guide details these skills as follows. Scrum teams are cross-functional. When a Scrum team delivers something, it's the accomplishment of the entire team, no matter what function or organization they're in. On your Scrum team, you may have a software developer, a marketing specialist, quality assurance, and logistics expert. You may remember our soccer team analogy. When each player comes together to play their position, the end result is you have all you need to get the ball into the goal. Plus, these fresh perspectives add a lot of value to your project and to your users and business. Scrum teams are self-organizing. This may sound radically different from other organizations you've worked at before, where your managers dictate your tasks and request frequent updates. But because Scrum teams rely on those 5 values, commitment, courage, focus, openness, and respect, the Scrum team is able to work together to deliver amazing results in a more organic and flexible environment. Although teams are self-organizing, high-performing Scrum teams often have a manager who sits outside of the Scrum team and provides strategic leadership and individual career development without disrupting the self-organizing nature of Scrum. In my experience, if a manager feels compelled to start telling the team what to do and interferes with this self-organizing nature, the benefits of Scrum will begin to collapse. Now that you have a better understanding of what constitutes a Scrum team, we'll take you through the specifics of each role in the next few videos. We'll start with the traits of an effective Scrum Master. Welcome back. We've already mentioned that, in Scrum, The project manager is most likely playing the role of Scrum Master. So what exactly does the Scrum Master role entail? In this video, I'll further define what a Scrum Master is. Then I'll explain some of the differences and similarities between a Scrum Master and a project manager. The Scrum Master promotes and supports the Scrum process by helping everyone understand and implement Scrum. This includes its practices, rules, and values. My favorite way to describe the role of a Scrum Master is that they're responsible for helping the team be their very best. They can achieve this by coaching individuals on the team to manage external forces, as well as maximizing the team's internal potential. For example, let's say that Virtual Verde keeps getting error reports about the shopping cart feature on their new website page. The Scrum Master is there to notice the pattern and help the team find a better solution, rather than just fixing one error at a time. Maybe a special test plan is needed, or extra solution reviews for that feature are needed before changes are released. The Scrum Master's responsibilities include coaching team members on the Agile and Scrum practices, rules, and values, and helping to find ways to manage the product backlog effectively. The product backlog is the single authoritative source for things that a team works on. It contains all of the product features, product requirements, and activities associated with deliverables to achieve the goal of the project. The Scrum Master facilitates Scrum events such as sprint retrospectives, which happen at the end of every sprint. The Scrum Master helps the team remove any blockers to their progress, such as missing information or access to training or tools. The Scrum Master also prevents unhelpful interactions or interruptions coming from outside of the team. At this point, you may be wondering, how am I going to do all of that? Well, you probably already have many of the traits that Scrum Masters need to execute these tasks. A Scrum Master is required to be organized and supportive as they lead. They're also facilitators, coaches, and great communicators. Let's find out how these traits are helpful in a Scrum Master's role. Scrum Masters must have good organizational skills that help them to effectively organize project artifacts and manage Scrum events. Scrum Masters must be supportive leaders who focus on the needs of others and the needs of the team before their individual needs. They're not aiming to raise themselves up as a manager of the team who bosses people around. Rather, they're always asking questions like, how can I help? Or what would help the team go forward on this project? Scrum Masters facilitate productivity and collaboration. This is a critical skill to ensuring every team member's voice is heard and that their input is addressed. Scrum Masters must coach team members on Scrum theory and application. Coaching is a skill that encourages dialogue and discussion over simply giving the answers directly. Finally, Scrum Masters must be great communicators, particularly when it comes to stakeholders. Scrum Masters are experienced in engaging with diverse stakeholders who may have competing perspectives and styles. A Scrum Master who can relate to many different types of people is a powerful and essential teammate to have on a project. You're probably wondering if the role of a Scrum Master differs from a traditional project manager. The answer is yes. The two roles can be quite different, although they may be played by the same individual and require a similar skill set. As their primary responsibility, the Scrum Master acts as a facilitator and a coach to the Scrum team, and they need to make sure that they have enough time in the day to do this job first and foremost. If the company requires the management of many additional project management activities, then the team might hire project managers who own that more traditional project management-oriented work. That work may include things like budget management, risk spreadsheets, or Gantt charts. But as I've said, it's common for traditional project managers to take on the role of a Scrum Master. They rely heavily on things like decision-making, communicating, flexibility, organizational skills, and more. And the position of Scrum Master is a natural fit for many of us as project managers. Now you know a bit more about the pillars and the role of the Scrum Master. To recap, a Scrum Master must possess skills like organization, leadership, the ability to facilitate, coach, and manage stakeholders. And a Scrum Master can be quite different from a project manager in terms of their responsibilities. But the role may be played by the same individual since they require a similar skill set. In the next video, we'll learn what a product owner does. Meet you there.
Hi, my name is Pete, and I work as a technical program manager in Google. The responsibility of the technical program manager is to see the end-to-end execution of the programs for which they're responsible. Within the day-to-day, we use the Agile framework as a core part of our deliveries. It allows us to iterate on the process, and it allows us to deliver products to our users much faster than traditional models. And the Scrum framework is just a single implementation of the Agile methodology. Scrum focuses on delivering rapid value to the customers and our users by working iteratively over short periods of time to deliver a product to our customers. At its core, Scrum is a self-organizing team, which means we bring individuals together. So it's important that when we bring these individuals together, everyone is clear on the roles and responsibility that they'll lend to this team. So it requires that there be a leader or Scrum master who helps to ensure that we're always working towards the same goal. What makes an effective Scrum master is one that has the following qualities. First, you're a good teacher and communicator. This is important because you need to instill the Scrum values throughout a team. Secondly, a Scrum master best leads a team when he or she is influential. In most cases, the Scrum Master does not have managerial responsibilities for the rest of the team, so it has to be through influence. And two key ways of doing this is to ensuring that the team is operating effectively, and second, ensuring that there's a culture of motivation within the team. As a leader, you're also expected to give direction to the team and ensure that we're continuing to work towards the goals that we have set out to achieve during the sprint. And by sprint, it's a focus effort towards particular well-defined goals, and it's like a burst of energy for the team to get us there. And I love the aspects of working with people and trying to come towards a common goal. It's not always easy, but it's always satisfying for me.
Hi again. In the last video, we reviewed the role of the Scrum Master. Now I'm going to give you an understanding of what the product owner does. You'll also begin to notice how the relationship between the product owner and the development team works. A product owner is tasked with ensuring that the team is building the right product or service. An efficient Scrum team isn't useful to anyone if they're creating a product that users don't want. The product owner ensures that the team is building the right thing. A product owner is responsible for continuously maximizing the value of the product delivered by the Scrum team. Their key activity is acting as the voice of the customer within the team. They represent and express this voice through their ownership of the product backlog. As a quick reminder, the product backlog is the single authoritative source for things that a Scrum team works on to achieve the project goal. The product owner's responsibilities also include helping the Scrum team understand why their work matters within the overall goal and mission. They also prioritize the product backlog to optimize the delivery of goals and deliver value to customers. The product owner ensures that the product backlog is visible and transparent to all. And finally, they're responsible for making sure that the product or service fulfills the customer's needs. Phew, that's a lot. So how do product owners accomplish all of that? They rely on their key character traits. A product owner's role requires them to be customer-focused, so they must understand a customer's needs and the industry of their business extremely well. Product owners also have to be decisive, great communicators, and understand both sides of the issue, so they can defend their decisions to the team. They must be flexible and open to new information that could generate a profitable change for the team. They also have to be optimistic and positive, especially since they're delivering the product vision to the team, and they must inspire the team to believe in their mission. Product owners also have to be available. The iterative nature of Scrum means that the team needs the product owner to help inspect, adapt, and plan the next iteration on a regular basis. And finally, they must be collaborative. Product owners will have to work with their team to ensure that the customer's needs are met, and that will require meeting with and working alongside several stakeholders. So as you may have noticed, the product owners are responsible for a lot of the project, just like the Scrum Master. Let's imagine an example of how a product owner will work within Virtual Verde. For example, let's say that the Virtual Verde product owner told the development team that they need to work on the following features in this order: flower arrangements, potted succulents, large potted plants, and herb gardens. When the development team reviews the list, they tell the product owner that herb gardens originally sounded difficult to deliver because they're considered regulated food items. But in reality, the vendor specialist on the development team knows that herb gardens are actually way easier than we thought because our vendor already has many herb gardens in stock. So the development team suggests focusing on herb gardens first. A product owner who is flexible and customer-focused will adjust the priorities based on this new information. So to recap, we discussed that a product owner acts as the voice of the customer and is customer-focused, decisive, flexible, optimistic, available, and collaborative. Next up, we'll discuss the role and traits of the development team. Hi again. In the previous video, we discussed the role of the product owner on the Scrum team. In this video, we'll discuss the development team within a Scrum team. The development team is made up of the people who do the work to build the product. The size of the team ranges from 3 to 9 people. This ensures that the team is small enough to remain nimble, but large enough to complete significant work within each sprint. Getting the team size just right is important. Smaller teams can struggle with diversity of skills and ideas, while larger teams may run into issues where there are too many opinions and streams of communication. The development team should be cross-functional, so they're capable of building the product or service in-house, since the team has all of the required skills. The development team also owns their processes and structures, so they have to be self-organizing and can't rely on others to tell them how to organize. They continuously operate as a team rather than individuals, and they support each other in reaching the team's goals. Lastly, the development team acknowledges that the best products emerge from teams who are customer-oriented and focus on the user when building their products. Many Scrum teams prefer to be co-located, meaning they work alongside each other in the same physical space. Many believe the team delivers higher quality work and improves faster if they are co-located. But this isn't always possible for every team. Let's take a look at an example. Let's say that the Virtual Verde team discovers an issue with one of their plant vendors. They can't make the holiday rush due to some product quality issues. The quality assurance specialist on the team can fly across the country and help the vendor, but that means they won't be available to complete their assigned tasks. If the team is co-located, they can quickly huddle in a conference room and write out some ideas to either get the work done or rearrange the work so this doesn't impact the sprint goals. If they don't sit together or work in different time zones, this collaboration is a bit harder, has to be done over phone or email, or you'll have to coordinate the schedules for a meeting, and you might have to come up with workarounds that ultimately lead to overall project delays. On the flip side, we live in a world where working virtually is possible. So if the quality assurance specialist needs to be on a call, they can dial in or join via video conferencing platform like Zoom or Skype. Both co-locating and working virtually has its benefits and drawbacks, so make sure to use whichever method is best for your team. At this point, we've covered each role within a Scrum team. A product owner is responsible for meeting customers' needs, also known as building the right thing. A development team is responsible for creating the product, also known as building the thing right. The Scrum Master is responsible for improving efficiency, also known as building the thing fast. We know that each role is vitally important to achieving the goals of a Scrum project. No individual is more or less important than the others. They all work together as a team to create value for their users and customers. In the next set of videos, we'll review what you've learned so far. Congrats on finishing a new section. You're on your way to becoming a Scrum expert. Throughout these videos, we've extensively reviewed a theory in the Agile framework called Scrum. As a refresher, Scrum is the most common framework that uses an Agile approach, but there are others, like Kanban or Lean. We discussed those approaches in previous videos. I introduced you to every Scrum team member's source of truth, the Scrum Guide, which you can always use as a resource. We discussed the Scrum theory, which has 3 pillars: transparency, inspection, and adaptation. And we explored the 5 Scrum values: commitment, courage, focus, openness, and respect. We went over the essential roles on a Scrum team. You may remember that those roles are the Scrum Master, who ensures the team builds the thing fast, the Product Owner, who is in charge of building the right thing, and the Development Team, whose role is to ensure the team builds the thing right. It's quite a feat that you've gotten this far in the program, so I hope you're really proud of yourself. I'll meet you in the next section where we'll discuss how to implement Scrum. Hi there! In the previous section, we introduced you to Scrum. We learned about Scrum values and explained the roles that are essential for all Scrum teams. In this video, we'll complete our overview of Scrum and dive deep into the setup and day-to-day execution of a Scrum team. We will go beyond what is provided in the official Scrum Guide and share the most popular tools, methods, tips, and tricks for working with a Scrum team. I'll discuss how to manage your product backlog, which contains all of the features, requirements, and activities associated with deliverables to achieve the goal of the project. Once we have a backlog, one of the trickiest parts of Scrum is estimation. We'll learn what t-shirt sizes and story points have to do with Scrum as we discuss a technique called relative effort estimation. Next, you'll learn about the 5 important Scrum events. Those are the sprint planning, the daily Scrum, the sprint review, and finally, the sprint retrospective. We'll learn what velocity means and how your team can use tools like burndown charts to manage their progress. I'll show you some other useful tools like Google Docs, Jira, Asana, Trello, Kanban boards, and more, which will help your workflow stay organized and transparent. So let's get started. We'll begin by discussing the product backlog, which is a critical artifact for Scrum teams. Meet you in the next video. In this program, we've introduced you to lots of project management artifacts, such as project plans, statements of work, RACI charts, and more. Now, we'll review an important artifact of the Scrum framework, the product backlog. In an earlier video, we defined the product backlog as the single authoritative source for things that a team works on. It contains all of the features, requirements, and activities associated with deliverables to achieve the goal of the project. The traditional, non-agile project management equivalent would be the set of project requirements. There are 3 key features of a product backlog. First, the product backlog is a living artifact, meaning that items are added to the backlog at any time. The product backlog evolves throughout the whole life cycle of the project and serves as a central guide for the team to know what to work on next. Second, the product backlog is owned and adjusted by the product owner. And finally, the product backlog is always a prioritized list of features. So when there's new information or new features, those are added to the backlog in order of importance. The items at the very top of the list are very specific and well-defined, leaving the more vague items for the bottom of the list. Remember, the product backlog is the guide and roadmap of your product. It's the central artifact in Scrum, where all possible ideas, deliverables, features, or tasks are captured for the team to work on. Because the backlog is so central, there are a few best practices and pieces of data to capture when working with product backlogs. There's the description, the value, the order, and the estimate. Let's go through how to build a sample backlog with these best practices in mind. First, there's the item description. The item description is exactly what it sounds like. It describes an item. When you're writing an item description, it's a good idea to be really clear when adding product backlog items, so the details are encouraged. For instance, on Office Green's new project, Virtual Verde, here's an example of an item description. As a Virtual Verde client, I plan to grow my choice of vegetables while I work from home in my New York City apartment. This item description includes essential details, such as an action and a location from the perspective of the customer. This ensures that the development team has enough information to meet the user's needs. Next up, we have the value field. This is the field that tells us how much business value the item delivers to the customers, to the team, or to the users. How to indicate value is a choice the Scrum team should make together. I like to set value by using dollar signs, ranging from $1 sign for low value all the way up to $4 signs for high added business value. Next, we have to add in an estimate. An estimate is how much effort the Scrum team thinks an item will take to complete. We'll explore how to do relative effort estimation coming up, but for now, it's important to know that the relative effort estimate is captured in each backlog item. This field in the backlog is owned by the development team. The next attribute of each backlog item is the order. As we mentioned, the backlog should always be prioritized. Both the estimate and value fields we just discussed help the product owner figure out where to place an item in the backlog's order of hierarchy. A product owner may ask themselves, how important is this backlog item compared to all the other items? Product backlogs order items from highest to lowest priority. This is called a stacked rank. Ordering items this way allows teams to operate more efficiently. For example, our Virtual Verde market research team learned that people who work from home would much rather have plants that are easy to take care of versus a more high-maintenance plant like orchids. Then, the team prioritizes the simple and easy plants on the backlog, like succulents, higher than the orchids. So their product backlog lists 1. Succulents, 2. Orchids. But say, for example, support gets an email from a user who says they'd love to have bonsai trees, which are also hard to take care of. Where do we put it in the order? Before orchids or after? The product owner does some research and decides that the team will do orchids first because they find that many more users have requested orchids versus bonsai trees. The product owner gives orchids a $2 sign value rating, bonsai trees a $1 sign value rating, and puts bonsai trees last on their list. Awesome, let's move on. When creating backlog items, the goal is to include as much as you can while not stressing about the unknowns too much. For example, the product owner in Virtual Verde doesn't know yet how much bonsai trees cost compared to succulents, so they don't know if they serve a high-end market or a low-end market. They document an assumption in the bonsai tree description and move on. They can study that in more detail when it is higher on the priority list. So now you know a bit more about defining the product backlog and who owns it. We also discussed how the various roles work with a product backlog, and we can identify and describe each field in a product backlog. In the next video, we'll learn how to manage the backlog, which changes throughout the Scrum practices. Meet you there. In this program, we've introduced you to lots of project management artifacts, such as project plans, statements of work, RACI charts, and more. Now, we'll review an important artifact of the Scrum framework, the product backlog. In an earlier video, we defined the product backlog as the single authoritative source for things that a team works on. It contains all of the features, requirements, and activities associated with deliverables to achieve the goal of the project. The traditional, non-agile project management equivalent would be the set of project requirements. There are 3 key features of a product backlog. First, the product backlog is a living artifact, meaning that items are added to the backlog at any time. The product backlog evolves throughout the whole life cycle of the project and serves as a central guide for the team to know what to work on next. Second, the product backlog is owned and adjusted by the product owner. And finally, the product backlog is always a prioritized list of features. So when there's new information or new features, those are added to the backlog in order of importance. The items at the very top of the list are very specific and well-defined, leaving the more vague items for the bottom of the list. Remember, the product backlog is the guide and roadmap of your product. It's the central artifact in Scrum, where all possible ideas, deliverables, features, or tasks are captured for the team to work on. Because the backlog is so central, there are a few best practices and pieces of data to capture when working with product backlogs. There's the description, the value, the order, and the estimate. Let's go through how to build a sample backlog with these best practices in mind. First, there's the item description. The item description is exactly what it sounds like. It describes an item. When you're writing an item description, it's a good idea to be really clear when adding product backlog items, so the details are encouraged. For instance, on Office Green's new project, Virtual Verde, here's an example of an item description. As a Virtual Verde client, I plan to grow my choice of vegetables while I work from home in my New York City apartment. This item description includes essential details, such as an action and a location from the perspective of the customer. This ensures that the development team has enough information to meet the user's needs. Next up, we have the value field. This is the field that tells us how much business value the item delivers to the customers, to the team, or to the users. How to indicate value is a choice the Scrum team should make together. I like to set value by using dollar signs, ranging from $1 sign for low value all the way up to $4 signs for high added business value. Next, we have to add in an estimate. An estimate is how much effort the Scrum team thinks an item will take to complete. We'll explore how to do relative effort estimation coming up, But for now, it's important to know that the relative effort estimate is captured in each backlog item. This field in the backlog is owned by the development team. The next attribute of each backlog item is the order. As we mentioned, the backlog should always be prioritized. Both the estimate and value fields we just discussed help the product owner figure out where to place an item in the backlog's order of hierarchy. A product owner may ask themselves, how important is this backlog item compared to all the other items? Product backlogs order items from highest to lowest priority. This is called a stacked rank. Ordering items this way allows teams to operate more efficiently. For example, our Virtual Verde market research team learned that people who work from home would much rather have plants that are easy to take care of versus a more high-maintenance plant like orchids. Then, the team prioritizes the simple and easy plants on the backlog, like succulents, higher than the orchids. So their product backlog lists 1. Succulents, 2. Orchids. But say, for example, support gets an email from a user who says they'd love to have bonsai trees, which are also hard to take care of. Where do we put it in the order? Before orchids or after? The product owner does some research and decides that the team will do orchids first because they find that many more users have requested orchids versus bonsai trees. The product owner gives orchids a $2 sign value rating, bonsai trees a $1 sign value rating, and puts bonsai trees last on their list. Awesome, let's move on. When creating backlog items, the goal is to include as much as you can while not stressing about the unknowns too much. For example, the product owner in Virtual Verde doesn't know yet how much bonsai trees cost compared to succulents, so they don't know if they serve a high-end market or a low-end market. They document an assumption in the bonsai tree description and move on. They can study that in more detail when it is higher on the priority list. So now you know a bit more about defining the product backlog and who owns it. We also discussed how the various roles work with a product backlog, and we can identify and describe each field in a product backlog. In the next video, we'll learn how to manage the backlog, which changes throughout the Scrum practices. Meet you there. In the last video, you learned about a product backlog. We discussed that in order to properly build a backlog, the project manager must consider factors like descriptions, value, order, and estimations. This ensures that you, as the project manager, will include enough information to meet the product owner's vision for user value. Now that you know about the various fields associated with each item in your backlog, let's discuss a popular way to capture and manage those backlog items, user stories. User stories are short, simple descriptions of a feature told from the perspective of the user. This helps the team create a solution that's always centered around the user and the user experience. User stories might start off large and broad, or may be broken down to be as small or specific as possible. In this lesson, we're going to give you some ideas on how to write user stories and how to break them down. User stories are made up of 3 different elements: the user, the action they will take, and the benefit to them. These elements might have a few different formats, but the most common is, as a user role, I want this action so that I can get this value. When writing effective user stories, the team must have a user in mind. Imagine that the user will interact with the product in order to achieve a specific outcome. What I really like to do at this stage is create personas, or detailed descriptions of my different users. Sometimes I even give them names. So in Virtual Verde, we could give our users some names and some information about them. Here are some user persona ideas. Leo is my plant vendor, who manages acquiring the plants, the supply chain, and delivery logistics. Felicity is my gardening expert, who helps my support team give our customers really excellent advice on how to take care of their plants. Zach is my amateur vegetable gardener, who wants to use the plants they purchase to make dinner. Nia is my management consultant, who works from home and wants to set up a professional backdrop for video conferences in their home office. Rena is my flower aficionado, who wants to have a different flower arrangement each week to brighten up their home. By giving these users a name and a backstory, we can imagine them in our minds, and we will design better products for them as a result. I really enjoy writing user stories because it puts me in the shoes of my users. Each user story should meet 6 different criteria, represented by the acronym INVEST, or INVEST. I for independent. The story should be able to be started and finished by itself. It's not dependent on another story to finish it. The N stands for negotiable. There's room for negotiation and discussion about this item. The V is for valuable. This means that completing the user story has to deliver value. E is for estimable. Our definition of done must be clear so that the team can give each user story an estimate. The S is for small. Each user story needs to be able to fit within a planned sprint. If that user story is too big, it should be broken down into smaller stories. Stories that are low priority on the backlog can stay big until they become a priority for an upcoming sprint. And finally, the T is testable. A test can be written to check and make sure that it meets the acceptance criteria. While the product owner is the main person responsible for writing user stories, the team has a responsibility to give feedback on whether the user story is clear and fits the invest criteria before they invest any time into it. In addition to user stories, you need to know the term epic, which simply represents a group or collection of user stories. Some epics for Virtual Verde might be live plant delivery, office plant advice service, vendor management, or client data management. Let's come up with a sample user story for our Virtual Verde clients in the live plant delivery epic. As a Virtual Verde client, I would like to acquire a bonsai tree so that I can have a beautiful plant and I can meditate as I trim the branches. I thought of this one because I bought a bonsai tree for my 12-year-old nephew last year. And he did some research and learned that in Japan, pruning bonsai trees is a meditative practice. So he's learning how to do that. With that sample user story, the product owner creates something called the acceptance criteria, which is essentially the checklist you will use to decide whether the user story is done. To have a completed user story, you must meet the acceptance criteria checklist. Here's an example of acceptance criteria for the bonsai tree user story. User can browse for 3 different types of bonsai trees to purchase. Compare the 3 trees to know which is easiest and hardest to grow in their home. Maybe each plant has a beginner, intermediate, and advanced gardener notation next to it. Can purchase specific bonsai tree care packages like fertilizer, trimming shears, etc. Access online to a bonsai booklet sheet, as well as having a care booklet packaged with the tree. Can find a troubleshooting bonsai tree issues page on Virtual Verde's FAQ page. Sounds like an amazing story, doesn't it? It feels like a real thing that a user can interact with and get excited about. Each user story in the backlog should be written this way. It's natural for items higher in the priority list to have more detail and fewer gray areas. By leaving these low priority items vague, this saves the team time from working on items that may end up getting deprioritized down the road. Fantastic! Now you know how to explain user stories, the criteria for assessing user stories' readiness for the team, and you can explain epics and user story acceptance criteria. In the next video, we'll discuss backlog refinement and explain relative effort estimation, t-shirt sizes, and story points. Meet you there.
Hi there, my name's Carla, and I'm on the customer education team at Asana. In this course, I'm excited to show you some ways you can streamline your team's work and maximize your productivity using Asana for work management. Workers across industries lose countless hours to work about work, the time wasted on searching for information, switching between apps, and holding status meetings. Work management tools, like Asana, are designed to reduce wasted time by empowering project managers to focus on project planning, team alignment, and resource allocation. Many organizations use these types of tools to manage everything from simple projects with small teams to complex projects with multiple stakeholders. The thing I love most about Asana is it gives me complete peace of mind that nothing's going to fall through the cracks. I can keep track of all my own to-dos in one place, and my teammates and I are always clear about who's responsible for what and when it needs to get done. I'll be popping in throughout this course to demo common project management activities using Asana. In this video, I'll demonstrate how to build the same product backlog for Virtual Verde that you just created. This time, you'll use projects, tasks, subtasks, and custom fields in Asana. I'll show you an example of each step so you know exactly how it's done. And in the activity that follows, we'll provide you with a detailed overview and instructions for each step so you can try it out in Asana yourself. Ready? Let's get started. First things first, I'll log into my Asana account. Next, I'll create a project for my product backlog using the sprint planning template in Asana. Asana has lots of helpful templates for all kinds of projects, so you can explore some other options on your own. Next, I'll fill in the project details. In this case, I'm going to update the name to Virtual Verde and create the project. I don't need to update anything else for this activity, but if you'd like to, you can select options for your team. Once you've created the project, you'll be directed to the board view, where you can start adding project details. Board view can help you track your team's sprint plans, similar to using a Kanban board. Most teams make projects at the beginning of each sprint and then track their work through each stage to make sure they know where their sprint work stands. In this template, those stages are represented by sections, which appear as column headers in the board view. You'll notice that many of the Asana templates, like this sprint planning one, have tasks already added. For the purposes of this demo, I'll remove these, but you can review on your own if you want to learn more about how to use this template. Now that I've created my product backlog project, I'm going to enter user story titles by adding tasks to the backlog column for the Virtual Verde project. My first user story title is Low Maintenance Options, then Plant Care Tools, and I'll do one more, Expert Help and Advice. Great, all set. Here's my completed list of user story titles. Next, I'm going to add the user stories. To do that, I'll need to open the task detail pane and update the task description with the story. Remember creating user stories in the last activity? I'll add in one of those as an example here under description. I'll choose this user story. As a potential customer, I want to find out which plants are easiest to care for so that I can purchase low maintenance options. Next, I need to add acceptance criteria for the user story. Since you entered your user story titles as tasks, you'll add your acceptance criteria as subtasks. For the first acceptance criteria, I'll add ability to sort plants by beginner, intermediate, and advanced. For the next criteria, ability to search for plants with similar care needs. When I'm done adding subtasks, I'll close the detail pane so I can access all the tasks in the backlog. As a quick tip, I can expand the list of subtasks and view my acceptance criteria without opening the detail pane. And last but not least for this activity, I'm going to add a custom field for the epic title. Custom fields let you add additional details to the tasks in a project. You can think of them like tags or columns in a spreadsheet. For this activity, I'll choose a drop-down field and use epic as the field title, and add plant care initiatives as the first option. I only need one option for this activity, so I'll delete option 2. And finish creating the field. Since all of these stories are part of the same epic, I can update the epic for all the user stories at once. Now that I've added all these project details, I can check the completed task card, which shows me the user story, acceptance criteria, and epic all in one place. Once I finish adding in the acceptance criteria for all of my user stories, my Asana board appears like this. I've successfully created my product backlog for the Virtual Verde project. Now it's your turn. Head to the next course item where you'll find detailed instructions to complete this activity in Asana yourself. As you continue to progress through the course, you'll have the opportunity to complete more project actions in Asana. I'll check in with you soon to share how you can use Asana in those cases too. Hi again. If you missed my last video where I showed you how to create a backlog in Asana, go check it out. In this video, I'll demonstrate how to add effort estimates in Asana, just like you did for the Virtual Verde backlog spreadsheet. I'll take you through an example of each step so you know exactly how it's done. Then, in the activity that follows, we'll provide you with a detailed overview and instructions for each step so you can try it out in Asana yourself. Ready to get started? Let's go. This time, I'm going to create the Virtual Verde project using an existing spreadsheet and Asana's CSV importer tool to input the project details. A CSV file uses a comma to separate values. That's where the CSV name comes from. This file holds a spreadsheet's data, so the CSV importer tool is a great option to move your workflow out of a spreadsheet software, like Excel or Google Sheets, directly to Asana. That way, you can get started right away on any project. I've already downloaded the adding estimation spreadsheet from the last activity as a CSV file, and now I'm going to upload that here. I'm going to import my spreadsheet, that's the CSV file. I'll name the project Virtual Verde Backlog and select a CSV file to import. When the preview appears, I'll go to my project. By default, the backlog appears in list view. Asana automatically generated some custom fields for me from the spreadsheet I was using: epic, value, and estimate. I'll add effort estimations to the empty fields in the estimate column. I'll add 8 for low maintenance options, 13 for plant care tools, and 8 for expert help and advice. Next, I'm going to sort the user stories. Depending on how you want to organize the stories in your backlog, you might choose to sort by any of the custom fields. For now, I'm going to sort by value and save as default. Now that my stories are organized, I'll switch to board view to review the backlog and save this as my default view. The beauty of using a tool like Asana to manage a backlog is how quickly and easily you can convert your plans into action. You can give each user story an assignee and a due date to make it clear who's responsible for what and when it needs to get done. Then keep everyone on the same page by publishing weekly status updates and highlighting accomplishments, progress, and blockers. Now it's your turn. Head to the next course item where you'll find detailed instructions to complete this activity in Asana yourself. I'll check in with you soon to share more ways you can use Asana to help manage your projects.
Welcome back. As you learned earlier, sprints, which we also called iterations, provide the whole rhythm for the team and is one of the 5 Scrum events. They allow us to get feedback quicker, encourage team collaboration, and provide more focus for Scrum teams. Within a sprint, the amount of work is planned based on the historical capacity of the team and is made ready for the sprint planning event. It might help to think of each sprint as a mini project with planning, execution, delivery, closing, and a retrospective all wrapped into this bite-sized package. Sprints are so important to Scrum that the other 4 Scrum events revolve around the sprint. The Scrum Guide technically defines 5 events: the sprint itself, sprint planning, daily Scrum, sprint review, and the sprint retrospective. Throughout this section of videos, I'll share what the recommended duration or time box is for each of these events. Time boxes are an important concept in Scrum. Some examples of benefits are that they create a sense of urgency, which will drive prioritization, provide a window of focus, which improves productivity, and they help the team develop a predictable rhythm to their work. A sprint's time box can range anywhere from 1 to 4 weeks. How do you choose? Well, there are 3 considerations. First, think about what you expect the frequency of changes to be. How often do you think your requirements might change? If you expect your project to have new requests popping up each week, you may want to make your sprint length 1 week so that you can adapt more often. If the needs are more stable, perhaps longer will be just fine. Second, think about how much focused time your solution developers might need to build a backlog item. If the baseline effort for most of your activities requires at least a week to create something valuable, then your sprint length should be at least 2 weeks to give the team room to execute without feeling the crunch mode. Third, think about how much overhead goes into a delivery of your product. If your deliverable or solution requires a large review with many stakeholders, or goes through a rigorous testing and quality assurance process that takes several days, you should factor that into your sprint length and choose a longer sprint, such as 3 or 4 weeks instead. Like most things in Scrum, There's no one-size-fits-all. And if you set a sprint length and decide it's too long or too short after a few sprints, you can always change it. For example, my current team has sprints that are 1 week long because we expect a lot of change and new requests coming into our backlog every week. But often, our work takes longer than a week to complete. We're currently reflecting on that contradiction and considering changing our sprint length to 2 weeks. Great! Now you know more about defining the sprint. In the next few videos, we'll discuss the relationship between the other Scrum events and the sprint. We'll start with the events leading up to the sprint, conducting sprint planning, and compiling the sprint backlog. Meet you there. Hi again! In the last video, we discussed the parameters for a sprint. We learned that a sprint is one of 5 Scrum events and creates the frame around all other Scrum events. Next up is sprint planning, the first event within the sprint that sets your team up for success for the next 1 to 4 weeks, depending on the length you chose. For sprint planning, the entire Scrum team comes together and meets to confirm how much capacity, meaning time and people, are available during this sprint, and then they identify what items from the backlog will be done during the sprint. This becomes the sprint backlog and ultimately the sprint goal. This is a time for the Scrum Master to facilitate team communication and answer the following questions throughout the event. Who is available during this sprint? Are there any vacations or conflicts that we should know about? What has been our average velocity, meaning how many points or backlog items have we been able to complete in a single sprint in the past? What can and should be accomplished by the team in this upcoming sprint? What is the ultimate sprint goal? How will the work get done? Throughout the sprint, who is responsible for what tasks? We've discussed sprint lengths and story sizes, so let's explore the meaning of definition of done. Definition of done refers to an agreed-upon set of items that must be completed before a user story or backlog item can be considered complete. Some things that may be within your definition of done are: the code or solution itself is reviewed by an independent peer group. The product or unit passes all testing requirements, which could include security or performance testing. Documentation is completed. All user story acceptance criteria specified by the product owner is met. And finally, the product owner accepts the user story. This list isn't comprehensive, and the team should determine what should be on this list and improve it as needed. A key deliverable of the sprint planning event is the sprint backlog. The sprint backlog is the set of product backlog items that are identified for completion during the upcoming sprint. In other words, the sprint backlog is a subset of items from the product backlog that you'll aim to finish during that particular sprint. For example, Virtual Verde's product backlog might have 50 backlog items, and Virtual Verde has created 4-week sprints that are named by month: May sprint, June sprint, July sprint, and so on. For the May sprint, the team has determined that they can complete the top 5 of those items based on the capacity of the team for May and the size of the effort of those items. Those 5 items now make up the sprint backlog. The sprint goal is the overarching objective that the team aims to achieve and helps the team understand the why of the sprint. This should be taken from a big picture view of the items on the sprint backlog. The benefit of having a bigger sprint goal identified is that it helps the team focus on a broader team objective rather than putting them into separate work streams. For example, let's say Virtual Verde has identified these 5 items as the sprint backlog for May. Virtual Verde users can purchase bonsai trees. Virtual Verde users can access an online discussion forum about home office decor. Virtual Verde vendor management team can add audit results for vendors. Virtual Verde users can use a coupon to purchase home office accessories. Virtual Verde customer support can connect products to support tickets. So the sprint goal is to provide a comprehensive experience to the user who wishes to install a bonsai tree in their home office. All of these backlog items can be connected to this sprint goal in some way. For example, there is a new coupon for bonsais, the vendors are audited for bonsai tree quality, and so on. To recap, we just learned that sprint planning will result in a well-defined and estimated sprint backlog, as well as a sprint goal to keep the team motivated towards that final achievement. See you in the next video, where we'll cover more sprint events.
Hey there. If you missed my last two videos where I showed you how to create a backlog and add estimations in Asana, go check them out. In this video, I'll demonstrate how to create and manage sprints in Asana. I'll take you through an example of each step so you know exactly how it's done. By planning sprints in Asana, teams can have full clarity on sprint plans, milestones, launch dates, and backlog, with work efforts and communication together in one place. Then, in the activity that follows, we'll provide you with detailed instructions so you can try it out yourself. Let's get started. I'll start by opening the Virtual Verde backlog I created in the previous activity, adding estimation in Asana. In this activity, we'll be prioritizing and scheduling each item in the backlog to an upcoming sprint. So I'll add a custom field for sprints, which will allow me to easily find out which sprint each task is scheduled for. I'll add sprint to the field title and confirm the field type as dropdown. Then I'll change option 1 to current sprint and option 2 to next sprint. Now I'm going to assign items to the sprint backlog for the first 2 sprints. For this step, I recommend switching over to list view, since it's easier to see all your tasks at once. I'll assign items to the current sprint or next sprint using the dropdowns in the sprint column. And then I'll resort the project by sprint to group my sprint items together. By default, Asana will sort my tasks within the sections I've created. If I disable sorting within sections, I'll see my tasks grouped by the custom field that I'm using to sort, in this case, by sprint. I'll also see a sum of any numeric custom fields at the bottom of each group. This makes it easy to keep track of how many points I've assigned to each sprint, so I make sure I don't exceed my team's capacity. And finally, I'll add due dates for each task. There's so much more you can do with Asana for sprint planning. You can customize your project details, plan your sprint with a timeline, manage sprint workloads, and monitor sprint project progress. Sprint planning is just one of the ways Asana can help you manage team projects and tasks. From hitting goals and deadlines, to tracking progress and troubleshooting, automating and streamlining your work, and tying all your work streams together in one place, Asana has lots of resources to make sure all your projects are set up for success. Now it's your turn. Head to the next course item where you'll find detailed instructions to complete this activity in Asana yourself.
As a refresher, one of the principles from the Agile Manifesto states, "The most efficient and effective method of conveying information to and within a development team is face-to-face conversation." So in this video, we'll discuss communicating with the team through 2 kinds of face-to-face events that occurred during and after the sprint, the daily scrum and the sprint review. First, the daily scrum, which is sometimes referred to as stand-up, is a time for the scrum team to synchronize and prioritize activities for the day. In 15 minutes, and at the same time and place every day, each team member answers the following questions. What did I do yesterday that helped the development team meet the sprint goal? What will I do today to help the development team meet the sprint goal? Do I notice any impediment that prevents me or the development team from meeting our goals? Daily stand-ups should provide the Scrum Master with the opportunity to quickly unblock the team with little delay, and daily stand-ups are an opportunity to reinforce focus on the sprint backlog and sprint goal. The official Scrum Guide says that daily stand-ups must happen every single day, though I will say I have had successful Scrum teams who meet less frequently than that. My current Scrum team has a 1-week sprint, and we have stand-ups 2 days during the week. We found that this works really well for us. Try it out and see what works best for your team. At the closing of a sprint, the the team will complete another event, known as the sprint review. This sprint event is crucial to the Scrum pillars of inspection and adaptation, and demonstrate the values of openness, courage, and respect. Let's discuss what I mean by that. The sprint review is a meeting with the entire Scrum team, where the product is demonstrated in order to determine which aspects are finished and which aren't. During a sprint review, the development team and product owner will play a heavy role in this inspection and discussion. They'll also cover an exploration of which items should be considered done in the product backlog. And they'll demonstrate and inspect the product. Sprint reviews should be really fun and uplifting. The sprint review is when the team gets to impress each other with the cool things they've accomplished over the last 1 to 4 weeks. These time-boxed meetings should not exceed 4 hours, and they're a good opportunity for the team to practice the Scrum values of openness and respect as they give feedback about the completed work. Often, some of the greatest product ideas come out of the sprint review. Let's look at an example. With the new service, the Virtual Verde team needs to launch their new website page featuring home office plants. Let's imagine that the Scrum team has a marketing specialist on the team. Remember, Scrum teams are cross-functional. During the August sprint review meeting, one of the sprint backlog items was to create a launch email to send out to their existing Plant Pals corporate customers about their brand new adventure. During the sprint review meeting, the team gets a demo of the email. They pull up the email onto the shared screen and give the specialist feedback right there in the meeting, such as, "Love that opening line, really draws them in. Let's make the opening image bigger. Can we make it easier for the recipient to forward this to their friends? Can we make this text shorter? It's a bit long." This group inspection of a work product from the team has many benefits that go way beyond just a better marketing email. First, it makes the feedback as immediate as possible. No need to wait for people to review on their own and send in their feedback later on. Feedback and adjustments might be made right there in the meeting. Second, everyone has a voice, leading to a shared sense of ownership of every aspect of their product launch. Last, but not least, the team learns more about how their marketing teammate does their job, leading to greater trust and understanding between team members. The sprint review is a time for the team to demonstrate what they've accomplished. The sprint review is also where team members unveil what is called the product increment. The product increment is what's produced after a given sprint and is considered releasable. A product is releasable when the team has developed a minimum viable product, which has a set of implemented features or requirements. A minimum viable product is a version of a product with just enough features to satisfy early customers. At the end of each sprint, only items that have met the definition of done are considered part of the product increment. Anything that is not done goes back to the product backlog. Great work! We've now covered the activities that happen during a sprint to ensure that the team is focused and is building valuable solutions. In the next video, we'll discuss another important meeting that takes place on a Scrum team, the Sprint Retrospective. Meet you there.
Hi, I'm Sarah, and I'm a program manager on the engineering education team at Google. One way that I go about centralizing and organizing that I think is not spoken about as regularly as documentation is honestly just having a daily stand-up or a weekly stand-up with your cross-functional project team. Sometimes as the project manager, you're inclined to just be like, oh, well, like our data analyst might not need to know what our marketer is doing just because they're so separate. But honestly, giving everybody the opportunity to come into a meeting week over week and just talk through very quickly, this is what I just finished, this is what I'm working on, creates a certain amount of visibility, transparency, and like creates a sense of camaraderie and teamwork in a way that just documenting all of that without having a conversation about it doesn't really solve for. The goal of a stand-up isn't to be something at the length of a retrospective or like a town hall. These are meant to be as short as possible. I usually schedule them for 15 to 20 minutes, and I'm happy if it's shorter. We really want people to just quickly get through what they're working on right now, and if they have any blockers, anything that might be getting in the way for a particular teammate or project, part of the project in making progress, then you might need to set up additional time with that particular person or work stream owner to work through those tasks and see what you can do to help unstick them. Another thing to think about with a daily stand-up is that you're likely going to be working with people across a lot of different time zones, a lot of different locations. I recommend sending out like a gut check or survey to be like, are we going to be okay with doing 11 a.m. ET? Are we going to be okay with doing 4 p.m. ET? And then kind of sticking with it to make sure that it feels like it's a consensus before you just put it on calendar and expect everybody to show up every single time. If you're working on like a project with a very tight deadline, if you're doing a stand-up every single day, I'd try not to create a culture where it's mandatory that everybody's there, right? It's happening every day, and there might be some components of a project that are moving quicker at other times than others. A great way to keep people within their time box within a daily stand-up or any type of meeting is to, before the meeting, create an agenda and actually write out next to it how many minutes you're hoping to allocate to whatever update it is. But if something comes up, I generally try to say, like, don't, cut them off mid-sentence. It's never a nice way to work with your stakeholders or with your project team to just be like, no, 2 minutes are up. You're done. But just say at some point when there's a natural break in conversation that, hey, we actually needed to give this other thing another 10 to 15 minutes. So can we put a pin in that and come back to it if we have time later, and if not, in the next meeting?
If you've been following this program, you've learned a lot about retrospectives, an important part of project management regardless of the approach you're taking. In this video, we'll cover the last of the 5 events of Scrum, the Sprint Retrospective. The Sprint Retrospective is an essential meeting of up to 3 hours for the Scrum team to take a step back, reflect, and identify improvements about how to work together as a team. In a Sprint Retrospective, the Scrum team will reflect on what's working or not working for the team regarding the people, the processes, and the tools. What improvements are worth exploring in the next sprint? And what improvements were put in place for the last sprint? Were they helpful or not, and why? In my experience, there are some key measures to take to ensure sprint retrospectives are a success. First, it's important to demonstrate the Scrum value of respect and always allow the team to remain blameless. If any team member is worried there may be negative consequences for providing feedback, your outcome won't be as beneficial. You'll need to create a safe space for candor by acknowledging potential awkwardness, and if needed, create a space for anonymous or private feedback. Participation is key because retrospectives only work if participants feel like their input matters. If you notice folks aren't volunteering their perspectives, search for ways to generate new ideas, such as asking them, what is one thing we could try in the next sprint? What slowed us down? What happened that we didn't expect? The answers to these questions can help you understand how to improve. For example, just recently, my team discovered that having dependencies on stakeholders outside of our Scrum team was slowing us down. In our retrospective, we decided to increase awareness of our priorities with these external stakeholders through some new communication channels. Next, balance the negative with the positive. Don't just ask where you can improve, but also ask things like, where did we notice success? You want your team to feel like they were successful, and you also want to recreate these successful outcomes. And finally, make sure to act on it. Teams can get discouraged from participating in future retrospectives if it feels like their feedback won't inspire change. Search for improvements or simply convert the things that worked best into your team's habits and norms. Facilitating conversation among the Scrum team, both during retrospectives and in everyday workflows, is an incredibly important aspect of being the Scrum Master and a project manager. In the next video, we'll discuss how to remain transparent with your workflow through the use of essential Scrum tools. These will also help facilitate good communication within the team. Meet you there. In this video, we'll explore 2 very important concepts that allow a Scrum team to manage their work as they progress through a sprint and the entire product backlog. These 2 concepts are burn-down charts and velocity. Let's start with what a burn-down chart's purpose is and how a Scrum team uses it. A burn-down chart measures time against the amount of work done and the amount of work remaining. The goal of using a burn-down chart is to keep the team aware of how they're doing against their overall goals. In a Scrum team, burn-down charts reflect how the team is doing with completing user stories during the sprint. The Scrum Master will review the burn down chart, sometimes daily, to examine if the team will hit their goals or not. And there's some simple math and numbers here, so now is a good time to mention what to do if your team is using t-shirt sizes rather than story points. In that case, simply map the sizes to a number and use that number for the burn down and velocity calculations. For example, maybe an extra small is 1 point, a small is 2 points, a medium is 5, a large is 8, and so on. Here's an example. Let's imagine our Virtual Verde team sprints are 4 weeks long, which will count as 20 business days. In their July sprint, the sprint backlog had stories that added up to a total of 200 points to be completed. If you assumed an even burn of points over the business days, you'd expect 10 points to be burned each day. By day 5 in their sprint, 22 points had been burned or completed. Okay, it's only 25% of their sprint, so maybe things are on track. By day 10, 45 points had been completed. Uh-oh, we should have been approximately halfway done by now, which would be 100 points. According to the burn down chart, we're running late, according to our sprint goal. Now, this isn't the time to panic and stress out the team. At this point, as Scrum Master, you should already be discussing with your team to find out how you can help and unblock them. By day 15, the burn down is 140 points. Phew, the team is back to humming along. By day 20, the burn down is 188 points completed. Great job. Let's discuss what happened in the retrospective. In Scrum, there's a term for how many points a team burns down in a sprint on average. That term is velocity. In other words, velocity is a measure of how many points a team burns down during a single sprint on average. When the team is conducting sprint planning, they're using their average velocity over at least 3 sprints to determine how many items they can safely add to their sprint backlog. There are a few things worth noting when it comes to calculating velocity. First, there's no such thing as a good velocity or bad velocity. Velocity is simply what the team has historically been able to achieve in a predetermined time box. The next thing is that each team will have a different velocity, especially since each team decides their own point system calibration. It's impossible to compare your team's velocity to another team's. For example, I'm currently on a team of 3 people, and we're burning down 70 points in a 1-week sprint, so our velocity is 70. But on a previous 5-person team, our velocity for a 2-week sprint was only 120 points. Was one team better or worse than the other? Nope, just different. Once you have a stable velocity and a refined backlog with prioritization and estimates, this unlocks an incredibly valuable superpower. You can now tell your stakeholders and sponsors 2 important things. You can tell them approximately how long it will take to complete the entire product backlog, and how much of your backlog will be completed by a particular time. This ability to confidently predict when things can get done is one of the most powerful tools in Agile and Scrum, in my opinion. Let's imagine that our Virtual Verde team has averaged 200 points in each monthly sprint for the last 3 months. The team knows they have 1,500 points left in their product backlog. They now can say that it will take them approximately 7 or 8 sprints to complete the entire product backlog. What if it's July and the team wants to know what will be available by January 1st? No problem, that's 5 months away. Just go down the backlog from the top and draw a line when you hit 1,000 points. That's a pretty confident estimate based on the past performance of the team. Pretty powerful, right? If you want to pull in the dates, you can use this information to decide to add people to the team and increase velocity, rearrange the priorities, or make other key project decisions. On any given team, it can take multiple sprints to reach a stable velocity, and that's perfectly normal. As the team gets used to estimating and working together, the velocity should begin to stabilize. Now you know how to define velocity, velocity trends, and burn down charts. You also learned a bit about how an Agile team reaches a stable velocity and what that entails. Using these tools is essential to any high-performing Scrum team. They're a powerful means to achieve execution predictability. I'll demonstrate another useful visualization tool in the next video. Meet me there. We learned about the importance of visualizing progress using burn-down charts in the last video. And good news, there are other visual tools that can also help a team progress throughout their sprint. The tool we cover in this video may be familiar to you since we briefly covered it in a previous video. It's the Kanban board. Some teams refer to this as the Scrum board rather than the Kanban board. While the two do have minor differences, they're referring to the same basic tool. The Scrum Guide doesn't specify exactly what a Scrum board is, but some Scrum tools available in the market provide a board that adds some features to a Kanban board. These features make it suitable specifically for Scrum. Both boards have three main features that make it a great sprint tracking tool for Scrum teams. There's visualization, work in progress limits, also known as WIP limits, and flow of work. Visualization can be an important strategy for learning and tracking. This Kanban board communicates everything we need to know at a glance. We can point at specific work items on the board we want to discuss, use images with variation in colors and sizes as we check in on work items, and we can notice where the challenges are in our team. Without this visualization, it's not as easy to find out where we can make improvements. These boards make it easy to notice where WIP limits break. We learned earlier in this course that Kanban WIP limits are constraints on how many work items the team actively works on at any given time. This provides focus for the team, which is one of our Scrum values. Have you heard the idea that there's no such thing as multitasking? In Scrum, it can be very true. And the more work you have, the less efficient you can become. When you use a Kanban or Scrum board, each team may set a WIP limit based on their configuration and context. This way, it's really obvious to notice when the team is going beyond the WIP limit. And finally, using a Kanban board can give you a better sense of the flow of work through the team's execution processes. Physical Post-it notes or even virtual versions of Kanban or Scrum boards allows the team to experience the movement of work from one phase to another. Using a Kanban or Scrum board, the team will move the items through the following stages: to do, doing, and done. This action often takes place during the daily Scrum, but the team can move items at any time. For example, with our Virtual Verde team, let's say that Leo, our plant vendor, has finished the item to finalize contracts with the 3 top plant vendors we plan to use for our initial launch. Leo will go to the Kanban board and move his item from doing to done and find out what's next to work on. If for some reason that was the last thing for him in this sprint, he may reach out to his team to see where he can help a teammate with their work. So to recap, Kanban and Scrum boards are really useful because they help you visualize your progress, set and maintain your team's workload and WIP limits, and give you a sense of the flow of work throughout the team's execution process. Awesome! I'll see you in the next video, where we'll review a few software products that help a Scrum team manage all of this information. Welcome back. We've covered a lot of ground in this section. We've learned all about the various Scrum events and what each of them does to ensure a Scrum team's success. To wrap up this section, we'll review the tools available to implement and facilitate the Scrum and Agile workflows. These can help improve collaboration and keep your workflow transparent. As a refresher, one of Scrum's pillars is transparency. So a Scrum team's success is very dependent on transparency within the team, and tools encourage everyone to be fully aware of progress and updates. These tools will be used to store the product backlog, sprint backlog, and any other essential documentation. Using Scrum tools will help your team keep all of your progress organized and in one centralized place. We've already heard about scheduling and work management, collaboration, and productivity tools. Let's revisit those tools now from the perspective of a Scrum team. Let's talk about scheduling and work management tools. In traditional project management, applications like Microsoft Project provide you with very powerful schedule and resource management capabilities. In a Scrum team, though, the most critical tool you'll need is something to manage your backlog and your sprints. Jira by Atlassian is a popular Agile team project management tool, and it supports all aspects of team and backlog management. It can be customized for your team and will provide you with a central place to find all things related to your Scrum team. Your product backlog, your sprint definitions, your velocity, your burn-down charts, and much more. After Jira, there are other tools on the market that your team can purchase that provide similar capabilities. Some teams build their own Agile tooling inside of spreadsheets too. When it comes time to choose a tool, most of these tools will let you have a free trial period before you make a permanent choice. If you're searching for something simple and fun to try, I recently started using Trello's Kanban capabilities just for my own personal projects. It's helped me plan a move and organize a big birthday party for my dad. Asana is another tool we've referenced in this program that works great for sprint planning and backlog management. Asana helps teams plan and coordinate their work, from daily tasks to strategic initiatives. With Asana, everyone can view, discuss, and manage team priorities. This allows teams to understand who is doing what and their time frame for each task. It's great for assigning tasks, automating workflows, tracking progress, and communicating with stakeholders. These applications are built specifically to help a team manage a backlog and their sprints. But there are many activities that these products can't perform. This is where additional tools for documentation, collaboration, and productivity come in. You'll want to use some form of documentation or word processing tool. This ensures that you capture key information about your project in a long format. Many products in this space feature both the documentation and the collaboration all in one tool. Google Docs is a great example of this, but it's not the only one. Spreadsheets, such as Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets, are useful for most teams. You can use spreadsheets to capture backlogs and backlog item information, or any number of other pieces of information for your project. You may also want a tool to create presentations, either using Google Slides or the Microsoft equivalent. These presentation tools are used all the time to, you guessed it, present information to the team. And finally, since it's Agile, we value individuals and interactions, so it's essential that we have excellent tools for collaboration and communication. The types of collaboration you'll experience on a Scrum team are video conferencing, team and one-on-one online chats, and emails. These tools will result in huge productivity improvements for your team. They allow teammates to communicate more effectively, get quicker answers, and unblock themselves long before the next day's daily Scrum. There are so many useful applications out there to help Scrum teams maintain the desired transparency between team members, and in Scrum, they decide what to use together. And just like that, you're almost at the end of the module. In the next video, we'll review and wrap up what you've learned so far. Congrats on finishing another set of videos. I hope you're feeling as excited about Scrum and Agile as I do every day. We spent a lot of time covering one of the most important parts of Scrum, the product backlog. We learned about refining the backlog and the importance of relative effort estimation using methods like t-shirt sizes and story points. We identified the 5 important Scrum events, which are the sprint itself, sprint planning, the daily Scrum, the sprint review, and the sprint retrospective. And we learned about when each of these take place and what their purposes entail. We discussed visual learning by using tools like burndown charts and Kanban boards. We also explored tools like Jira, Asana, and Trello, which make it easy to keep your workflow transparent and keep every team member up to date on the progress made throughout the sprint. I really want to congratulate you on making it this far. You've already learned and accomplished so much, and I'm excited for you to continue learning. Next up, we'll learn about using Agile and Scrum to adapt in real-life situations. Hi there. In the previous section, we wrapped up how to run a project using Scrum. I introduced you to the day-to-day practices that most Scrum teams use. These practices include developing user stories, managing a product backlog, and running sprints. In this next section, we're going to take an even wider view of Scrum and Agile, and I'll introduce you to how to use Scrum and Agile in your daily life. I'll help prepare you to apply Agile thinking and methods to both job interviews and potential work scenarios. These work scenarios will teach you how to implement Agile to deliver value and achieve your business goals. You'll also learn some techniques for responding to risks and team dynamics. Finally, I'm going to wrap up this course on the foundations of Agile by discussing Agile as it applies to the broader project management discipline, and I'll help you figure out how to use Agile in your next position. Ready for the final stretch of this Agile journey? Let's go. Hi again. Previously, you learned how to effectively implement Scrum so that you and your team can deliver amazing products to your users. In this video, we'll explore the result of a project and the end product you'll ultimately deliver, which is what holds value for the user and the customer. I'm going to define the term value as it relates to project management. Then, I'll share some strategies and tactics you can employ to maximize the value your team delivers. The end product of a project is what provides value to the user. Value could be financial benefits, user growth and engagement, or compliance adherence. The term value can mean different things for each customer based on what they expect the product to accomplish. The number one Agile principle is to satisfy the customer by delivering valuable software. You can always replace the term software with the words product or solution for non-software related projects. Delivering value as quickly and efficiently as possible to users is the primary reason Agile came into existence. The term value-driven delivery means you and your team are focused on delivering a product of high value. Just because you deliver a product, that doesn't mean it's valuable. As I explained during the overview of Agile history, there was a growing problem of project teams churning out products that weren't very valuable. This is because teams were focused on the process and weren't taking the time to evaluate the usefulness of the product until the very end, after it had been delivered. Agile redirects the team's focus to be about the product and ensures that the process for producing the product supports the goal of delivering value. How can you make sure your team is focused on value-driven delivery? Build the right thing, build the thing right, and run it right. Remember, Agile and Scrum evolved out of the software industry, so the terms build and run describe processes for building or running a software program, machine, or other technology. You can replace the words build and run with terms like create, produce, or deliver for non-software projects to describe the same concept. Let's break this down. First and foremost, to deliver value, you have to build the right thing. You can do this by making sure you really understand what your customers want. You might ask a customer what they want, and they may say they want to build a website to promote their new plant service. But take this one step further and ask about their goals. Do they want to increase their brand recognition? Do they want to get more customers? Having a solution-oriented conversation with your customer will help you build the right thing. The Agile value of individuals and interactions over processes and tools extends beyond just the team. It refers to having those important interactions with our customers and users too. Next, you must build the thing right. That's lingo for ensuring that your team only builds the requested or approved features. Working on features that aren't necessary can lead to complexities in the product that don't add any value to the users. In addition, building more than you need delays or reduces your value upon delivery. It also increases the risk of bugs or other issues down the road. And finally, in addition to building the right thing and building the thing right, you have to make sure that you're running it right. To run it right means that your team has thought through how the user will interact with the product once it's been delivered. Make sure your team thinks through some of the operational tasks that will need to be addressed after the product has left the door. Ask the following questions. How do users get support? How does the product add value to users long after they initially received it? And how do you make sure that new features and capabilities reach the existing users? Building the right thing, building the thing right, and running it right all work together to ensure that the team creates a steady and continuous delivery of value to users throughout the life of the product. Let's consider how the Virtual Verde team can ensure that they focus on value-driven delivery. First, how could the Virtual Verde team ensure they build the right thing? How do they know they're creating something the customer really wants? In this case, the team needs to ensure that they create a service providing the types of plants that customers want to buy. So they could create a survey that asks current and potential customers what their plant preferences are and the type of home office design they want to create. Then, they'll use this data to update the user stories on their product backlog. Next, how could the Virtual Verde team ensure they build the thing right? Once the team knows what kinds of plants and designs the customer wants, how do they ensure the right processes are in place to deliver them? Well, the team can secure a trusted plant vendor that carries the desired plant types and work with designers to make pots, vases, and other plant accessories in the different design styles that customers like. The team can also communicate with marketing to make sure the types of plants and designs that customers want are prominently featured on the website and in the catalog. And finally, how can the Virtual Verde team make sure to run it right? How do they ensure customer satisfaction once a customer has signed up for the service? How does the Virtual Verde team retain their customers long after their plants have been delivered? The Virtual Verde team can send out follow-up customer satisfaction surveys that ask about their plant and design offerings, delivery times, plant quality, and other insights. The team can then use this data to continually evaluate their vendors, plant and design offerings, and marketing strategy. For example, the team could find ways to increase the quality of service by offering watering cans and automatic plant health systems, or even free monthly gardening tips, so the user feels empowered and supported to maintain their plants. There are many ways to maximize your team's value delivery. Building the right thing, building the thing right, and running it right all work together to ensure that the team delivers value to users. In the next video, I'll teach you another effective, proven way to deliver value called a value roadmap. Meet you there.
My name is Cameron. I'm a technical program manager. A technical program manager is a program manager with a technical background that enables them to engage in technical conversations or decisions with their team. My favorite thing about Agile has got to be the flexibility. So when you're making most of the decisions at the beginning, when you know the least, not all those decisions might be right. Some will, but probably all of them won't be. So with Agile, it's a framework and a mindset that is open to that change. It embraces it. It welcomes it as you learn more. Agile gives you built-in opportunities to make changes. An important aspect of Agile is incremental delivery. You're delivering little bits over the course of a long period of time. To contrast that, if you think of waterfall, that's when you deliver everything at once to the customer at the end. In a waterfall project, you have to wait and wait and wait until the very end to get everything. And perhaps you're waiting days, months, years, and you cannot extract any value out of it until the very end, until the product is delivered. I think that makes sense for a house. I think that makes sense for a car. I cannot give someone parts of a car and have them start getting value out of it. Because a car has certain safety requirements for things that take longer to figure out, for more challenging design issues. You don't have to sacrifice the entire project for that one last bit. If you built 90% of the project and you can ship it, go ahead. Agile lets you extract that value. That way people can use that 90% while you're trying to figure out that last 10. And then hopefully you have an ecosystem where it's okay to deploy or release that last 10% down the line. Change is never free because you've already communicated plans, you've already made estimates, you already have some work in progress. Then if you're going to change that, you're going to lose a little bit about. Is that change within your threshold or your budget to be able to adapt to get it right or get it better? So it's not always about it being perfect, it's about it being good.
Hi again. In the previous video, I introduced you to the concept of a value roadmap and described its three main components: product vision, product roadmap, and release plans. A value roadmap helps you determine specific routes for your team to deliver the most value. It uses the basic events of Scrum to define product goals and requirements so the team can deliver a successful final product. In this video, I'll share some tips for creating an effective value roadmap. My first tip is about creating the product roadmap. The product roadmap provides a high-level view of the expected product, its requirements, and an estimated timeline for reaching milestones. Many of those milestones will be product release dates. You'll need to ensure that product release dates are only rough estimates. This is because, as an Agile team, you know that things can and do change. This is especially true since these dates could be anywhere from several months to several years down the road. If the roadmap is too specific, it might set the team up for failure because the dates can't be guaranteed. Speaking of product release dates, this leads me to my next tip, which is about the release plans. There are some important things to know about creating a release plan, which includes approximate target release dates. It's very important that the product owner and project manager or Scrum Master work together to develop each release plan. This is because the release plans need to connect the product roadmap with the team's capacity and velocity. The capacity and velocity is the measure of the team's ability to complete work at a certain pace. A release plan that isn't connected to the team's ability to complete work could be unrealistic and lead to an unsustainable pace for the team. This would violate one of our Agile principles, which states, Agile processes promote sustainable development. The sponsors, developers, and users should be able to maintain a constant pace indefinitely. If there are any hard dates or deadlines on your roadmap, meaning a date that cannot change, factor these into any release plans that might be affected. For example, Virtual Verde might realize that Office Green has an Office Decor convention in October, and they want to launch the first phase of Virtual Verde services at that event. Communicate hard deadlines with your stakeholders so there's a clear understanding of must-have features. This way, if the team discovers it might be at risk for not meeting the deadlines, they can quickly focus on the must-have features. Since Agile is all about embracing and anticipating change, it might seem like having a release plan goes against the Agile value of responding to change over following a plan. But having a release plan does not mean you are resistant to change. An Agile team treats a release plan as a living artifact, so the plan can change based on the environment and new information that's received. Some common factors that may result in a change to the release plan could include a change in team velocity or how much work the team can do in a given iteration or sprint. This could be from adding or losing team members or even just efficiency gains from how they work. A second factor is a change to the product's scope, if the product owner approves a change to the product. And a third factor that could affect a release plan is improving the understanding of how much effort is needed to build certain features. The team may discover that a user story or epic is more or less difficult than they originally thought, after doing some research or simply from better understanding the product space. My last tip for creating an effective value roadmap is that the Scrum Master or Project Manager should always review the release plan before starting a sprint planning session. They review the release plan to check whether the team is on track. If the team is off track, the Scrum Master needs to have an open conversation with the product owner and business people to figure out what they can adjust to get back on track. This is where the Scrum value of transparency is key. An effective value roadmap is a powerful tool for building and delivering successful products. The plans you create will help you stay focused on delivering maximum value and the ability to remain flexible and stay agile. In the next set of videos, we're going to switch gears and discuss some common challenges that you might encounter when introducing Agile in Scrum or when joining an organization that is transitioning to Agile. I'll share some tips for how you, as the project manager, can help support and coach your team along the way. Meet you there. Hi there. In this video, I'm going to discuss your role as a project manager in an organization that wants to implement Agile practices. As you conduct your project management job search, you're likely to find many of the organizations you apply to as either already being Agile, making the switch to becoming Agile, or not yet Agile, but ready to transition. As an entry-level project manager, it's not likely you'll be expected to lead a complete change to Agile in a large organization, but you may be expected to help support the change process. On the other hand, you might get hired by a smaller organization that does want you to lead the change. The techniques I'll share with you in this video will set you up to be prepared for all of these different scenarios. Let's begin. First, let's review some of the key learnings from one of the earlier courses on organizational culture and change management. When an organization shifts the way it conducts business, it usually requires a shift in its culture as well. Understanding organizational culture and the change management process is crucial when introducing new ways of working. Organizational culture is based on shared workplace values and pops up in people's behaviors, activities, the way they communicate, and how they work with each other. A change that's out of sync with the existing culture is much more difficult to complete. In fact, there's research proving that companies that don't consider the cultural aspects of Agile are more likely to fail. Change management is the process of getting folks to adopt a new product, process, or in Agile's case, a new value system. Okay, let's get into how to help introduce or continue the adoption of Agile or Scrum into an organization. Unless the organization has many years of Agile behaviors and experience, you may be facing a change in organizational culture. These changes take time, sometimes years to complete. As a project manager, you might only implement a few changes, and that's okay. You'll still be adding value by demonstrating to your team or organization new and different ways of approaching their business. I'll share with you some words of wisdom I heard from a colleague many years ago. They said, change takes patient persistence. It may feel like things are taking too long, but in many cases, small changes add up to a big change in the long run. So what are some ways that you can bring Agile or Scrum to a new team? First, I want you to think about the concept of creating a sense of ownership and urgency. When people feel a sense of ownership and urgency around a project, it increases interest, motivation, and engagement with the project outcome. One way to create a sense of ownership is to find an executive sponsor who also feels a sense of ownership for the change you're creating. Wherever possible, point out connections between the changes you're making and the company's stated mission or values. Having buy-in from someone at the top increases your chances of successfully driving any change in organizational culture. Ideally, your sponsor will reinforce the benefits of Agile to the organization and give you the support and resources you need. What about creating a sense of urgency? My favorite approach to this is to ask the team, the organization, and the stakeholders questions about what's working and what's not working right now. Then, I ensure the changes relate directly to those opportunities. Here are some questions you could try. What is preventing us from providing the best possible product to our customers? What is allowing our competitors to outperform us in this market? And how can we help our teams become more productive and supported in their work? This not only helps you prioritize your work, you get the team thinking about the possibilities they'll enjoy if the change is successful. You can use these questions going forward to collect feedback during the change. Coming back to these questions and demonstrating the incremental improvements is the true spirit of Agile. Let's come back to our friends at Virtual Verde. When the team set out to create this Agile project and change towards an Agile approach, they realized that the CEO of Office Green wanted to make sure they took advantage of the market trends, since more people were moving to home offices. They created a sense of urgency by highlighting that home office decorating was becoming a hot online trend, and they wanted Office Green to become a part of the action. Lastly, the Virtual Verde team had lots of experience from their Plant Pals project, so they could gather a team who was motivated to apply what they learned and try a different approach to a new market opportunity. Bringing Agile or Scrum to a new team could be challenging, but well worth the effort. By applying some of these techniques, you'll increase your chances of success. I've found that, with a little patient persistence, you can get past some of the initial skepticism, and the benefits of an Agile approach will start to become obvious to the team. Once this happens, change will become easier to drive over time with their commitments. I once had a large global team at Google of about 200 developers. My director and I wanted to transform them into an Agile organization. It took us about 2 years and many trips to different work sites for me and my team of project managers to deliver the tools, processes, and coaching to bring the team up to speed on an Agile way of working. I approached that transformation very much like how I described here, and it worked. In the next video, I'll share some tips for coaching new and developing Agile teams. Meet you there. Hi again. As the project manager or Scrum Master, you're in the position to help the team improve. In other words, you're the designated Agile coach. You're there to help the team recognize areas for improvement and help them implement solutions. In this video, I'm going to break down your role as a coach into 3 steps, similar to how you might approach being a coach for a sports team. First, you'll design the plays with the team. Second, you'll provide feedback to the team. And lastly, you'll celebrate and learn with the team. Let me elaborate on each area a bit more. First, the the Scrum Master designs the plays. Although the Scrum Master owns the playbook, it should be created with the whole team. The playbook should include how the whole team runs a sprint review, how the team works day to day, and how the team publishes plans to stakeholders. When updates are needed to the team's plays, it's important that you involve the team in any decisions. Take them through new processes together, think through all the positions on the team, and make sure everyone notices the flow. A personal example of this was when I facilitated a brainstorm meeting with my team to discuss which parts of our process weren't working. We used sticky notes to organize our ideas for improvement and then prioritize the ideas to implement changes. Second is provide feedback. You should always provide feedback to your team and stakeholders as early as possible and on a day-to-day basis. Just like a coach gives directions from the sidelines, the Scrum Master needs to provide guidance all the time. In addition to feedback provided in the moment, the Scrum Master also takes in a big picture view. This is similar to how a coach might watch a video recap of the game to find patterns that need improvement or plays that worked so well they should do it every game. Providing feedback shouldn't only be about fixing broken things, but finding processes and activities that work really well and encourage the team to continue using the things that work. Third, celebrate and learn. Congratulate the team often on a job well done, a happy customer, or a big solution launch. If the team, quote-unquote, loses, meaning they weren't successful in fulfilling a requirement, acknowledge that loss as critical data that will help the team improve next time. It's important for the team to still feel positive about any disappointment and think of it as a learning opportunity. As Thomas Edison famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." As a Scrum Master or Agile Project Manager, you play an essential role in the team, and you're a big part of why Scrum and Agile work at all. You're responsible for ensuring the team is always improving and becoming the best team it can possibly be. Awesome! Now you know the 3 steps of coaching your team: designing the plays with the team, providing feedback to the team, and celebrating and learning with the team. Next up, we'll learn how to anticipate and respond to real-world risks with Agile and Scrum implementations. Meet you there. Hi again. In previous videos, we discussed how your role as an Agile Project Manager or Scrum Master is similar to the role of a coach. We also explored some of the ways you can help an Agile team improve their performance. In this video, we'll discuss some more common coaching challenges you might encounter while managing an Agile team or project, whether they're a new team or they've been around for a while. The 3 challenges we'll focus on are managing a stable product roadmap, incomplete implementation of Scrum, and experiencing a lack of stability within the team. First, let's discuss the challenge of managing a stable product roadmap. Agile projects almost always experience changes in the product roadmap. Being able to respond quickly and productively to these changes is a core Agile value. But it is possible to have too much change impacting the project, which can lead to an unstable product roadmap. There are 2 main causes of an unstable product roadmap: product ambition and product assumptions. Let's cover product ambition first. Product ambition poses a challenge when product leadership is overly ambitious about what the team can realistically deliver. The product owner is responsible for representing the project to customers and executives. Because the product owner wants to make the stakeholders happy, it can be easy for them to overpromise what the project can deliver. For example, imagine that our Office Green CEO notices that the virtual Verde business in North America is doing really well. In a meeting, they say to the product owner, "This is amazing. I'd love to launch virtual Verde in Asia in the next 4 months. What do you think?" The product owner really wants to deliver, so they tell the CEO, "Sure." But the product owner won't actually know if meeting this objective is possible until they discuss it with the team, which means they might accidentally be setting an unrealistic expectation with the CEO. So, how do you deal with this challenge? Here are 3 ideas to maintain a healthy roadmap management plan between you and the product owner. First, agree upfront how to handle new opportunities. Define when they are reviewed and estimated, and how customer or management commitments are made. Second, set up regular roadmap reviews with the entire team, at least quarterly, so that everyone knows what to expect. And third, promote sharing knowledge between the product owner and the development team so that the product owner knows how much effort the product takes to build, and the team is aware of changes as early as possible. The second thing that can cause an unstable product roadmap is making too many product assumptions. When there's uncertainty in a project, you may be required to make some assumptions to move things forward. But making too many assumptions can jeopardize the team's success. Let's go back to our virtual Verde example. Sending plants to customers' homes is a complex process. You need to consider a lot of different factors, like which plants will sell best, which plants will stay healthy in a wide variety of climates and settings, and what vendors to work with. The team does their best to study the market and opportunity, but they have to make some assumptions and move forward with decisions relying on less than perfect information. As a way to deal with product assumption issues, document the assumptions and make them transparent. This allows you to discuss the assumptions as a team and either agree that they're safe assumptions to make or decide to question and double-check them. If you do decide to double-check them, you can use unbiased user research. Unbiased user research gathers information about what users really want. It allows you to confirm or reject assumptions and helps you move forward with confidence. User research could involve conducting surveys, running focus groups, or using other methods to collect objective data about your users. The next big challenge you might encounter relates to an incomplete implementation of Scrum. This happens when Scrum practices are only partially implemented, or when Scrum practices are implemented without proper support and coaching. Scrum roles, artifacts, and activities are designed to work together as a set. If you only partially implement them, you might end up reducing their benefits. Incomplete implementation of Scrum can cause a lot of issues. First, it can lead to a loss of clear roles and responsibilities. To implement Scrum completely, you should define the roles for the team and then fill those roles with specific individuals. For example, if you try to have a developer also act as the Scrum Master, they might not have the bandwidth to do either role very well. Better to have developers be on the development team and you, the project manager, be the Scrum Master. You might also be tempted to skip some events or blend them to save time. But a lack of clear boundaries for sprint review, sprint retrospective, and sprint planning can lead to reduced transparency, inspection, and adaptation. And these are all essential to experience the full benefits of Scrum. And finally, not providing the team with the Scrum coaching they need would also mean that you haven't fulfilled your role as Scrum Master. It's your job to fully explain the Scrum practices and provide coaching, so your team understands the reasoning behind the practices and can embrace their benefits. The solution to all of these challenges is to implement Scrum completely. Being the Scrum Master is a critical role. You're the coach, so you should reinforce the connections between the team's activities and the Scrum and Agile values. For example, if your team complains about daily stand-ups, remind them that the purpose of stand-ups is to gain feedback, unblock work, ask for help, and reinforce the importance of staying focused on the sprint goals. You can also make sure roles are well-defined and properly fulfilled. For example, ensure that all team members understand their own roles as well as the roles of their teammates and how those roles interact. For example, the product owner makes sure we build the right thing, the development team ensures we build it right, and Scrum Master ensures we build it fast. And finally, the last big challenge you might encounter with Agile and Scrum teams is a lack of team stability. When the team changes a lot, with people leaving and joining frequently, it can make things unpredictable and disrupt the flow of work. There are a few things you can do to address instability on your team. First, have a quick onboarding process for new team members to help them get to know the rest of the team and understand the project. Second, use a pair programming style, where a new team member teams up with a colleague and starts learning on the job. This also helps if people leave the team, since a partner should be able to pick up where they left off. And third, if team composition changes because members keep leaving, try having shorter sprints. This way, team members can wrap up their last sprint's worth of work before leaving. To recap, the three main challenges we've covered in this video are managing a stable product roadmap, incomplete implementation of Scrum, and a lack of team stability. I've encountered each of these challenges and more in many of my teams. The wonderful thing about Agile is that there's a huge community of Agilists that are happy to help with any challenges you might come across. Even an experienced Agilist like myself asks for help now and then. Coming up, we'll explore how Agile is evolving and keeping up with the times. Now that's an Agile way to be.